Chapter 1, Midori no Ha, The Green Leaves. Naruto sighed as he took off his orange jumpsuit and laid it on a chair. No use cleaning right now, too late, too tired to care. Too darn proud and happy to care either. He had just become a shinobi. After 3 years of failing and ridicule, he had done it. And all it took was sneaking into the Hokage Tower, stealing a scroll and learning a jutsu from it. Which brings him to his current thoughts. Namely that jutsu are awesome. Of course, who would think anything else? But, the problem is that he doesn't know that many. Sure, he has the Kawarimi and Henge, just now got the Cage Bunshine too, but that's not enough. How can it be enough? First order of business is getting more in his arsenal. It would only be fair too. Everyone else had their families teaching them taijutsu and ninjutsu and all kinds of jutsu. Naruto had no one. He was all alone. So he had no one to teach him or show him or just tell him it would all be fine when he got scared. But now he had the old man and Iruka-sensei, so it was better, but still he needed more jutsu. Because he planned to have a family, with many children. And what father would let their child go without as much cool teachings as possible? New jutsu, huh? I gotta get me some of those, he mumbled to himself. Easier said than done though when you're the scapegoat of the entire village. For no good reason at that either. So where could he get some new jutsu? The old man was probably busy, he was the darn Hokage after all. And Iruka-sensei was injured. Asking the Kyuubi no Kitsune would be an eternity too early no matter when he did it. But there was no one else to ask. So what could he do? He thought some more on it but decided that it hurt his mind when he overthought things and went to sleep. Just as his sleep took him however, he remembered something from Iruka's lectures. One of the few he had ever bothered to listen to. All the Hokages made their own special techniques that gave them an edge over every other enemy. These same techniques we use today as proud Konoha shinobi. So, since he was going to be a Hokage, he needed his own techniques. That was about the first thought that came to his mind when he woke up. But what to do? What kind of super awesome cool technique could he make that no one else had ever made? It would have to be original, cool and easy to use. Strong as well but hard to copy or imitate. So he did the one thing he thought he'd never have to do. Go to the library. You see, most people think that Naruto is an idiot and completely inept. That is a mistaken perception. He is actually quite smart and quick of wit. However, he lacks knowledge and understanding, the two things that actually turn intellect and wisdom into a usable force. Which is why every time any teacher actually bothered to sit down with Naruto to teach him something, he seemed to pick it up at light speed. Too bad nobody ever cared about the orphan enough to actually look at him away from their preconceptions and own expectations. But Naruto knew that. He knew he wasn't an idiot, he just didn't know about stuff. Mostly because nobody ever told him anything, they just took things for granted. Therefore, since he couldn't depend on anyone anymore, he was a ninja now, he had to do it on his own. And that meant shiver studying, which in turn meaning having to go to the library. Getting in was hard, or annoying more like it, but after showing off his headband, and suffering nearly an hour of authenticity checking, he managed to get in. Now to find books on jutsu theory, chakra manipulation theory, jutsu creation theory, jutsu analysis theory. Well, any kind of theory that had to do with chakra, techniques and jutsu. And bingo! Steps to Jutsu Alteration and Creation for Beginners by AR. Whoever that AR guy was, he was a godsend to Naruto. So, the blonde took the book and went to a corner to study. Jutsu creation is neither harder than it is speculated but neither is it easier than hoped to be. It is an art form where one understands himself first and the world around them second. For that to be done, a unique kind of mind is necessary, one that both accepts oneself but also seeks to further understand. A natural-born inquisitive. Most commonly jutsu are separated in several categories, further separated by elements or effects. Ninjutsu, split into general, also known as ninpo, katen, fuuten, suten, reiten, and doten, in no particular order. Area jutsu, fuinjutsu, barriers and seals, genjutsu, visual and emotional, and taijutsu, weapons, bare-handed, enhanced. However, those distinctions are wrong. There are only two types of jutsu, who combine in a third. These two types are emit-type jutsu and reinforce-type jutsu. Emit types create something from nothing, such as fire or electricity, to give a rather vulgar example, but also include barriers in almost all types of genjutsu. Its greatest advantage is that it requires little setup to initiate, usually just the hand seals and chakra used. However, due to its nature of creating things out of nothing, it also has a great chakra cost and requires great control lest the technique goes berserk and backfires. Reinforced type instead alters and/or augments a substance's natural abilities. Examples are most Doten Jutsu, almost all forms of taijutsu and several types of emotional or sense-altering genjutsu as well as all types of area jutsu. It has the advantage of requiring less chakra and control as they rarely go berserk, instead they simply burn out the medium of use, with the notable exception of area jutsu who instead burn out the target and are therefore extremely dangerous and so will not be discussed further to avoid accidents. However, as a disadvantage, they require setup before being used, the medium through which they will be channeled, be it water or earth. The third type is combine and it is made out of combining the principles of emit and reinforce types. However, it is extremely rare to find someone even capable of using such a jutsu, much less someone who can actually make a new combined type jutsu. However, they are the strongest type of jutsu as they have very few to no weaknesses apart from their humongous chakra cost and general lack of people who can use them. For one to create their own technique, it isn't as easy as using several hand seals in order and willing something to happen. The prospective creator must keep the following rules in mind. The first rule: what type of jutsu it is. Emit, reinforce or the, extremely rare, combined type. As the latter is the rarest, and most dangerous, the prospective creator should focus on creating a technique using one of the first two archetypes. Do not stray from the chosen type. Do not try to cross over and keep a clear mind on what you want your jutsu to do. For starters, choose a relatively simple concept, such as reinforcing the hardness of a fragile item or creating a small gust of wind. This process determines the first hand seal of a jutsu if any are used. The second rule: what is its expression? How does the jutsu do what you wish it to do? Simply throwing chakra cannot accomplish anything. You have to shape it, change it and alter it to your needs. Does the jutsu create a gust of flame or does it toughen your armor? Does it create the illusion of fire or does it enhance your arm muscles? Again, keeping a clear focus on what you intend to do is extremely important. This process determines the last hand seal of a jutsu if any are used. The third rule: how and why does it occur? How does your jutsu perform what it is needed to do? It may be as simple as a gout of flame or as complex as a dragon-shaped manifestation of lightning. It may be merely enhancing the muscles by improving their endurance, or it could be shifting the entirety of the body's humors to certain locations for either defense or offense. This process finalizes the inner 10 hand seals of the jutsu if any are used and makes it stable. The golden, and final rule: know your limits. Do not attempt an untested jutsu in harsh conditions, read, combat, stress, lack of rest, sickness, or unaided. If possible, use clones. Ideally Cage Bunshine for their ability to copy the user's knowledge, memories and skills as well as transfer any gained information back to the user upon dispelling, and have an ally standing by to provide help or a superior to supervise. Test the technique extensively to make sure no instability is noted and that it can be performed easily and without need of much focus. Add more hand seals to the sequence if it needs further stability or remove if they are not necessary. If you are able to keep these simple rules in mind, then you can create, or recreate, almost any type of jutsu. Read on the next chapter as to hints on what type of ninjutsu would best suit the starting creator. Good luck. After that was a list of chapters on anything related to jutsu construction. Unfortunately, it also took some things for certain, namely that the reader have understood several chakra theories and completed various chakra control exercises. Naruto sighed disappointed. I'll have to study even more? Can't be helped, I guess. But throughout his reading, he thought about one thing constantly: what kind of jutsu should he make? What could he make that would be original enough to actually suit him? What could he make? Katen, Raten, Suten, Doten, Fuuten. They were all so common, everyone knew them. Anything he would think up, someone else must have already thought about. Genjutsu. He sucked, he couldn't even make a bunshine. Now he just knew he had way too much chakra to ever use right. Taijutsu. He had no idea of it, Mizuki team never taught him even the basics, something he'd have to fix as soon as possible. Fuinjutsu? Nuh-uh, not good with calligraphy. And again, No teaching prior. And best leave Jutsu out of it as well. What to do? What to do? Then he remembered the previous night. Who am I? I'm Leaf-style shinobi, Uzumaki Naruto. Bio. Leaf-style shinobi, huh? The seed of an idea planted itself into Naruto's mind and he grinned like never before. Oh yes, he could do this, he would do this. Leaf-style indeed. But for now, he had more studying to do. Chapter 2, Haru no Saishu no Hai, First Day of Spring. Hatake Kakashi was a busy man. He was also a pervert and one of Konoha's strongest jounin. A candidate for Hokage even. So why the hell was he saddled with 3 brats again? Damn, being a jounin sensei would really mess up his time. Not like the brats were anything special anyway. Just Uchiha Sasuke, the top student of the year and last Uchiha. Haru no Sakura, civilian-born girl with the highest theoretical rankings achieved in years. Uzumaki Naruto, the idiot and dead last of the class, somehow also a Jinchuriki. Of course, nobody said that Sasuke had a stick the size of a bridge shoved up his ass or that Sakura was a raving fangirl or that Uzumaki Naruto considered jutsu making a hobby. Well, alright, maybe the brats were a bit special, hopefully not in the bad way. He'd have to do something about that, wouldn't he? But that would have to wait after they passed, if they passed, the test he was currently giving them. And they didn't look like they were going to make it. He had already beaten them all in their respective specialties. What more could a bunch of 13-year-olds do to him? 100 times 0 is still 0. Hatake Kakashi would find it out the hard way. Because Naruto was sick and tired of it. Kakashi underestimated him like everyone did. Nobody believed in him. So, he decided that if loud and brash didn't work, he'd use loud and brash with a side of sneaky in it. He wasn't Konoha's prankster king for nothing. He could be pretty darn sneaky when he wanted to. First order of business, get Sasuke, Sakura-chan, for all her beauty and smarts, would be useless in a fight. Even he could tell that. So, how's it going there? Feeling nice and cozy there, team? Snarked Naruto once he saw Sasuke buried deep into the ground, only the head protruding. At least no pedophile shoved anything of his up my ass, Dobe. Was the expected snark back and Naruto chuckled, shrugging his shoulders. Touché, I guess. So, what are we gonna do? Isn't it obvious? I'm getting out of this hole and then going after Kakashi-sensei. I touched the bells before, this time I'm getting them. Even against his will, Naruto whistled. That was pretty impressive, he didn't even get close to them before. Man, wish I could say the same. But you saw how I got my ass kicked. But, way I see it, it's gonna take you too long to get out of there and time's running out already. I could get you out a bit faster, since, you know, I can actually move. He poked fun at the Uchiha. But then you'd help me back. I can't get the bell, and now that he knows how good you are, he won't be surprised as easy. Only choice is to surprise him again. But without getting surprised ourselves. Only way to do that is by cooperating. You know, divide and conquer and all that crap, never too good with it. Naruto shrugged. Sasuke was surprised. Was that really the dead last? Was that a genjutsu or something? Because Naruto sounded like he had a lot of common sense right then. And common sense was rather uncommon lately. But the blonde was right, he needed help and it was true that he had surprised his teacher. Now that the jounin knew how good he really was, he wouldn't even let him get close. How do you know I won't cheat you out of your bell? He asked, though mostly to check Naruto's reply. All that he got was a chuckle and Naruto's helping hand. You may be a team, but you got honor, I know you do, you know you do. Besides, what would you do with an extra bell? Give it to Sakura. No way, she's even weaker than me and you can't handle weakness. You're allergic to it. A grunt later, both from the exertion of getting out of the damn hole and from acquiescing to Naruto's words and Sasuke sighed. Better Naruto than Sakura, even he was less likely to draw enemy attention. And that was considering his loud personality and orange colors. Speaking of loud personality, the blonde wasn't anywhere near as loud, obnoxious or arrogant as he was the month prior, and calling someone arrogant was a high insult if it came from Sasuke. In fact, even his clothing seemed to be subdued a bit. What the hell had happened? Rules of Shinobi Conduct, Stealth Guide and Tactical Stratagem Guide had happened. Good books those once. Naruto had stumbled across them. Read. The librarian snuck them into his reading table, and read them for fun. If people didn't look at him with his orange ensemble, whoa, Nice word that, he noted, then he'd make them notice him with his kick-ass skills. Which meant getting these skills in the first place. First you get the skills, then you get the recognition, then you get the hat or something like that. But for now, he had something else to focus on. So, any other bright ideas, Toby? He's a jounin, he'll see us coming a forest away. Naruto grinned a grin that was entirely too much like his pranking planning mode for Sasuke to be entirely comfortable with. Well, what if an entire forest is in his face? Leave cover to me, just focus on getting the bells. I'll be busy though, to keep the cover up, so I'll only be able to supply a few clones. That all right with you? I can still change them into things, like kunai or shuriken, that you can throw and catch him by surprise. HNNN. That might work. He wouldn't expect a shuriken to change to a human, should get him by surprise. But what's our cover? Wheel. You know what I said yesterday about making jutsu as my hobby? Let's just say I took Leaf-style shinobi to a more literal level. Then he laughed, conspiratorially and evilly. It was contagious and Sasuke grinned back. Time to get back at their damned sensei. Kakashi got a strange feeling, like he had just been had, but ignored it. His read was more important than that anyway. What could a bunch of brats do to him? Hello Kakashi-sensei. Care for a rematch? It was Naruto, the annoying blonde, but something was strange about him. Oh yeah, he wasn't rushing like an idiot. Sure, Mr. Dead Last. I didn't know you liked the Senin Goroshi so much. He tried to get a reaction out of the blonde and let's say he was honestly surprised when he didn't. He should have been worried instead. Oh, I didn't like it, not at all, you damn pedophile. I bet that's how you get your kicks, molesting young boys. What, women are actually too much for you? I don't want to hear about it from a boy who hasn't even jerked off properly. Well, just so you know, this boy is a legal adult, you know. Old enough to kill, old enough to drink and do other things as well. Now that was cause for alarm, and surprise. Looking over at the blonde, all Kakashi got was a vicious grin. Before he could speak, the blonde continued. Oh, and by the way, gotcha, he said, hands already in a weird position. Both hands were in half-ram position, but while one was placed before his chest, as is the proper place, the other one was over his head. Kirigakure no Jutsu? How could he? Konoha Ninpa, Konohagakure no Jutsu. Leaf ninja art, hidden in the leaves technique. What? Kakashi chalked out, but there was not much else he could do as suddenly leaves from all the trees around him picked up, buffeting him forcefully. On their own, no leaf actually hurt him, but it seemed like it was a single mass slamming on him, like a thick pea soup. Even if he could move freely, it messed up almost all of his senses. Touch was out of the window thanks to all these leaves slamming onto him. Sound was off thanks to all the leaves and sight was gone as well. So he ran, hoping that the jutsu had a small area of effect. No such luck, it seemed to not be targeted on him either, more like emitted all around Naruto. How much chakra did the brat have? He thought he only possessed just a bit above average, judging on how long his clones had lasted, but this was on a whole other level. So it was very surprising when he was forced to dodge to the side to avoid a thrown kunai and then lean to the other, lest a kick caught his head. Funny, in the short glimpses of sight the fluttering leaves allowed him, he made out a completely different kind of leg than Naruto's Uchiha Sasuke. But they were supposed to be mortal enemies. They would turn into rivals only after he had worked them to the bone and bonded them through various demeaning chores. They weren't supposed to cooperate. And Sasuke was definitely not supposed to throw kunai quite that liberally either. Something was wrong and Kakashi wasn't in on the plan. He hated when he wasn't in on the plan. And just how was Sasuke able to find him in all this fluttering leaf mess? Could Naruto be able to control the density of this damn jutsu of his? If so, he was either better than the file set or he had practiced for way longer than he had thought possible. It was both, even though Kakashi himself didn't know it. Then, he heard a weird popping sound. His trained ears managed to distinguish it as a cancelled henge. Even with all this mess around him, Kakashi had only one moment to curse his luck and still virgin life before being swarmed by clones he never even knew existed. Half an hour later, the prospective Team 7 was back at the 3 stumps that served as their meeting point. Kakashi had made to tie up Sakura, since she hadn't gotten a bell, but Naruto emphatically refused. More like threw in several remarks on bondage, pedophilia and whipped cream, but he got the point across. Or rather, Sakura got her slap across Kakashi's face. Really, no child should read sexual remarks, make or break relationships and enemies. So, to recap. Sakura, you were useless. Naruto, you were less than useless. Sasuke, you managed to do something, just a bit above useless. But somehow, he wasn't about to reveal that Naruto's remarks had managed their goal of ruining his calm and unsettling him. You two managed to pass. So, what am I gonna do with you? He sighed. You two made a good enough plan, but you completely forgot Sakura. And Sakura, you did nothing to help Naruto while he fought near you, instead you just ran off to Sasuke. But, Sakura-chan knew I would most likely fail to get a bell, so she bid her time. She saw your strategy and probably thought of a plan to share with Sasuke, right Sakura-chan? Naruto exclaimed, throwing a sharp glance at the girl to let her know of his plan. They're the top two of the class, they knew nothing about my brand new Konohagakure no Jutsu. So, you can't blame her for it. Why yeah, Naruto's right. I didn't know anything about it. She followed up close, regardless of the blonde idiot's plan. It would be better than being called a traitor, she thought. Besides, as for me and Sasuke excluding Sakura-chan, well, she's more a support type ninja, right? I bet she's gonna be great with traps and such, but we needed combat. If she was included, you could have used her as a hostage and that would be bad, right? Is that so? Glared Kakashi. He knew the blonde was lying, but why was he? The same thing passed Sasuke's mind. Alright then, I'll be back after you eat your lunch, but don't share any with Sakura or you will fail instantly. Then he was gone. Naruto had but a second to sigh in relief before being picked up by the scruff by an annoyed Sasuke. Udobi, he shouted. What were you thinking? Why are you including her? Want him to fail us? I agreed to your plan because it would give me a better partner than her, he spat. But what you're doing will get us failed. Sasuke's tirade came less from the potential of failure however, and more from the feeling of betrayal. No it won't Sasuke. How do you think I learned to do jutsu? Try every hand seal combination and hope for the best. Come on, I'm not that stupid. I went to the library, darn place that it is. But you see, I found some nice books there, tactics and such. One of them said that excluding special circumstances, no Konoha cell functions with less than 4 members, a leader and 3 subordinates. In short, Kakashi is our leader and he needs 3 partners. The plan was us two getting the bells, but if we completely cut off Sakura-chan, we'd fail. It's true that Sakura-chan's weak in battle, but I'm sure that she's gonna make an excellent support, know what I mean? Even the Sannin had 3 members and one of them was a medic nin. Not all battles are won with fireballs, Sasuke, or nobody will be there to patch you up after. Whatever. Don't think I've forgiven you for lying to me though. Still the Raven let the blonde go and turned around to huff. Naruto was right, Sasuke knew as much, but that didn't make it any easier to swallow. Oh, come on, Sasuke team. We need Sakura-chan to pass the test. Meanwhile poor Sakura stood dumbstruck, mostly because the ropes kept her from falling to her knees. Sasuke-kun thought she was worthless? He didn't want her on his team? He'd rather have Naruto than her? Who what why? Tears began streaking down her face and she sobbed quietly while Naruto tried to salvage the team. Anyway, Sasuke, you can't always get what you want. Hell, I'd rather have been in Hinata's team than with you or Sakura. She and Shino dislike me much less than either of you, but here I am. For now, we have to cooperate, or Kakashi-sensei will rip us apart next round. Didn't know about you, but I'm not failing. Look, all I want to say is, well, is it that bad to work together? You saw what we did, we took down a Jounin. I mean, if instead of taking bells we had attacked with a kunai? Think about it man, us, 2 newly minted genin, managed to beat a freaking Jounin. If that doesn't mean that teamwork's important, then I don't know what is. Yeah, but you still lied to me. Sasuke countered, forcing Naruto to sigh. Ever since Itachi's betrayal, the Raven had had a serious problem with liars. No, I said we should exclude Sakura-chan from that fight. After that, we had to include her because that's what Kakashi-sensei wanted to hear. I didn't lie to you, I tricked you. Come on man. Forgive me alright? Now we got a second chance to do this, right this time. And since Sakura-chan knows I'm not as pathetic as I used to be anymore, maybe this time she can help us. Besides, don't you get it? There has to be the three of us that pass, the bells are just a distraction. Ugh. When did you get all that smart anyway, Dobe? It wasn't a question per se, but Naruto answered it with the saddest, loneliest look one could imagine in his eyes. Since I actually sat down and read something. Nobody ever taught me anything really, you know. Even Sasuke's grunt seemed to stutter for a second as he realized that Naruto never had a family to begin with, but Sasuke got over it quickly enough. They had both gotten over their respective lots in life, at least in part. For now, something else beckoned. HHNNN. Fine, we'll cooperate, but I'll still be watching you, Uzumaki. You might have had reason to trick me, but I still don't like it. So Sakura, any ideas? Hey, Sakura. Why is she crying? He called her name twice because the pink-haired girl seemed to stare into infinity, her mind unable to cope with the stress of rejection. In all her time knowing Sasuke, she had never once thought possible that he didn't like her, that he didn't believe in her at all, that he didn't want her near him even more than Naruto. That he hated her. For her Sasuke to reject her so completely, the little girl's world seemed to collapse. Her tears had stopped coming out, instead she dry-heaved and chalked on her own. Sasuke, you're even more of an inconsiderate, antisocial idiot than me, and that's saying a lot. Naruto sighed and got a small napkin off from his bento box, cleaning up an unresponsive Sakura's face. Come on Sakura-chan, the team didn't mean it like that, he was probably just pissed off at me and lashed out everywhere around him. He tried to soothe the girl. Besides, you're the smartest of us three, right? So, right now, we need you, because there's no way we're getting Kakashi caught by surprise again. We need a new plan and only you can give us one. A not-so-subtle and neither gentle elbow buried itself into Sasuke's ribs, forcing the boy to speak up. Yeah, whatever, sorry, we need you. It was like life seeped back into Sakura, after Sasuke said sorry and that he needed her. Then that meant he didn't hate her, he didn't reject her. That meant she could help him, she had to help him. Hope shone almost like stars from her eyes and it was all Sasuke could do not to step back and away from her. And that was only because she was tied up securely. Alright. Meet in time, declared Naruto as he opened both bento boxes between the three and cut Sakura's ropes. He hadn't had time to do anything more as Kakashi appeared, lightning flashing in the background and an unearthly wind blowing. It would be so cool if it wasn't so scary. An hour later, and a confirmed success on finally becoming a team after a tear-inducing speech about their budding teamwork, Naruto sat on a stone, getting interrogated by Kakashi, and Sasuke of course. Now, my cute little genin, how did you get a technique like the Konohagakure, or whatever you called it? Naruto sighed, he knew it was coming. Well, you know how everybody, except Sakura-chan, belongs to a clan, right? And Sakura-chan is way smarter than me. What do I have? I have nothing. Well, got my Kage Bunshine a month or so ago, but that was a fluke gone right, really. And I still can't do the regular Bunshine, Iruka-sensei says I use too much chakra and blow it up. So, I thought, if I can't use an already existing jutsu, I'd have to make my own. Besides, I plan to start an Uzumaki clan someday and that means leaving behind family jutsu. Uzumaki clan? Kakashi had a very bad feeling about this. I mean, there was one Uzumaki clan before, but they died and Ji-san said I got their name in honor of one of them, like an adopted child or something. I'm still no less of an orphan though, but I have a name to live up to at least. Since I have no idea what the original Uzumaki were all about, I have to make do with my ideas, you know? So I went to the library. I mean, how did our techniques get made anyway? Somebody had to make them, maybe I could make my own, right? So I found this great book and started reading. I decided to start small, don't want to blow myself up with a cat or something, that's team's line of work. A glare and a grunt came Naruto's way and he chuckled. So anyway, I thought, what theme should my jutsu have? Like what should it be? All the elements and such are overused, I'm no good at genjutsu, know nothing of taijutsu or fuinjutsu and iryojutsu need way too much studying, not my style. He took a breath as he picked up a small tree's leaf and made it hover and spin over his palm. So, I took leaf-style shinobi to a new level. Called myself that the day Mizuki. Well, Mizuki went rogue and I had to fight him with Iruka-sensei. He asked me who I was and I said I was Leaf-style Shinobi Uzumaki Naruto. He even added his original catchphrase. So, I took it to another level. I mean, if you can use water and earth, why not leaves? And we're in a forest and there's lots of forests all around. Using a medium for my jutsu means I need less control, so it's easier for me to learn. So, anyway, I took the book and some others I'd found, though, he really stole it from the library. He just didn't know he had to register it first and went out to practice. Turns out I have this weird wind affinity thing. Makes it easier to use Futon, though I can't find any around, so it's not like I can learn any. But at least, it makes it easier for me to mix my chakra with wind and spin it around. So I use that to make my Kanehagaku no Jutsu. I guess it could work with sand or even a bit of water to make a Sunegaku or Suigaku no Jutsu. But I haven't seen any of that around so I don't know. While Naruto took a breath from his rant, Kakashi, Sakura and Sasuke gaped. Well, Kakashi more than the others because the brat had just managed to find out the trick behind the Mizugaku no Jutsu, one of Miss Hidden techniques. What the hell, when did the brat turn into a genius anyway? Then, he remembered who the child's parents were, from the moment he was born. Wow, stuttered Sakura, without wanting to. She was officially impressed. And so was Sasuke. But anything more would be way too expressive for him. So, any more ideas you have, Naruto? Came Kakashi's happy response, making the other two Genin stare at him. What? It was a nice idea, right? Naruto nodded happily. Well, of course I do. I mean, wind chakra's good for cutting stuff, right? So what if I could make leaves into shuriken? I can already make them somewhat stiff and resistant to damage, but I can't make them into blades yet. I also want to reduce my Kanehagaku no Jutsu. I mean, it takes out a lot of chakra to use, so it's probably way too much for anyone else. Maybe I need to add a hand seal or something. And then. Now his grin was evil. Then I have my Yugi. And that's the secret. Baka, Samurai Yuzuki. Grunted Sasuke, getting nods from Sakura. Ninja have Hisatsu Waza. Now poor Sakura was torn between sweat dropping and face faulting, but she chose gape. Kakashi instead chuckled, these brats could be fun after all. Chapter 3, Saishu no Hanasaku, First Bloom. As days passed and Team 7 performed more and more missions, though to their chagrin none of them were more than a glorified chore, all members save Naruto noticed something strange about the blonde. No, it wasn't how he didn't act like a complete retard, or that he had gotten over his crush on Sakura, which he hadn't. He was simply too deep into thinking about his jutsu to really think about her. It was how quick he was at growing stronger and stronger. It was as if every day he became visibly more skilled. Normally, that would delight a teacher, especially one as bored and inactive as Kakashi. After all, if his student grew so fast on his own, that left more time for Icha, right? But Naruto was anything but normal. He had been worse than an idiot. He had been the most retarded student in the whole damn academy. And now you expect Kakashi to not be worried when the boy suddenly seemed to gain insight and power that he shouldn't have? Preposterous. He cared for each and every one of his students. He knew everything there was to know about them. Well, not really, he knew far less than he'd like to admit, but he still cared for his brats. They were his brats. Until they made Chunin anyway, where he could just dump them to someone else or something. Icha comes first. Always. Still, it was worrying for the copy ninja, and the rest of the team as well. Even though Sasuke would never admit it, he was curious, and so was Sakura. The latter was more along the lines of annoyance, since she kind of missed the old Naruto, and his constant work at keeping her happy, but let's just say she cared. In some convoluted, incomprehensible way that tsundere girls do. Kakashi was more worried about the source of the intellect. Or more like how furry that source was. Could it be the Kyuubi? Could the demon have broken free? Could it be twisting the boy into an omnicidal maniac with a fetish for slaughter? All joking aside, he was worried. So, he did the logical thing. No, not stalk. Who stalks people anyway? Far away, one certain Hyuga sneezed and promptly fainted from embarrassment. No, he acted like a logical adult, one of the few times so far in his life, and decided to ask Naruto. Say, Naruto. You've been improving rather fast lately. Care to share the secret to success? He asked kindly, or as kindly as a man can ask with 75% of their face covered. I guess I shower lots? Q blinking. No wait, that's the other line. I guess it's 'cause I work out a lot and then eat a lot and then sleep and then work out a lot. I do this all day, so it's really good for me. Kakashi sighed and sat down next to the boy. It wasn't about physical growth he was worried, anybody could work on that, it was the mental growth he cared for. Not that. I mean, you are smarter now, you don't shout as much and you actually make sense. It's not a bad thing, I'm just curious, that's all. Well, I don't shout that much 'cause my head hurts most of the time from the training. If I shouted as well, it would be killing me, sensei. But, I guess it's because I started reading for a change. Hell, I'm still reading right now. Kakashi, and the other two members of the team, blanked. Naruto, you're not reading right now. You don't have a book in front of you to read from. He drawled out slowly, trying to make sense of the blonde. Sure I am. Wait, no, I'm not. Well, I am, but it's not I, it's me and... Well. He stopped ranting and took a look at Sakura's face. She was almost the most expressive of them, seeing as how she lacked a stick up her bum and had more than 50% of her face revealed. You think I'm crazy, right? Well, I'm not. I'm not crazy. I really am reading. It's about the second Hokage and various fungi indigenous in Rai no Kuni, he shouted, getting up suddenly and almost sending Kakashi rolling away. What does the Hokage have to do with fungi? Sakura's question came, along with a "I think you should see the nice people in the white coats" look. One has to wonder how so many words can be transferred with a look and why language was made if looks could say so much, but I digress. It doesn't. They are completely unrelated. If it was the first Hokage, I'd wonder, but the second had nothing to do with it, he never even went in Rai no Kuni. Naruto kept on going crazy. Don't you see? There was a frantic look in his eyes now and Kakashi was slowly, calmly moving closer to the blonde. The boy needed help. Easy Naruto, calm down and talk about it calmly. I'm sure we can all resolve it peacefully. Well, even Kakashi had learned a bit of psychology. Calmly? Calmly? You think I'm crazy? You all think I'm crazy, don't you? Naruto backed away. But you are the crazy ones. Who the hell reads about the second Hokage and various fungi indigenous in Rai no Kuni anyway? Sasuke decided to end this with his characteristic, one-word way. You. What? No. They are completely unrelated things. I'm reading on the second Hokage and on various fungi, but it's not I who's reading. At that moment, Kakashi wondered if Naruto had taken a hands-on attempt to research mushrooms and ate a few of them. Pretty colors and all that nice things. Giggle. No bad Kakashi, think about the wonders of psychotropic flora while in huge orgies another time. Your student needs you. Naruto. How can you be reading books when you don't have one on you? He tried to bring the discussion back to normalcy. I can't, of course. How could I? Naruto deadpanned. But I'm not reading, me is, or was. Guess me ran out of chakra and popped. Damn. Wanted to know what happened next. Wheels began to turn in Kakashi's mind as he took in that last sentence. Naruto. Who exactly is the I that was studying? Eh? A cage bunshine of mine. What? Who did you think it was? It's just so confusing to name them, so I just call them me. Do you know how hard it is to name 1,000 U's every time you summon? One name is enough. The crow that flew over the stun team sounded awfully like cawing idiot, but Kakashi tried to ignore it in favor of sighing. Oh, you were using the cage bunshine's secret, the ability to transfer memories when the clone dispels. I was worried there for a second. Still, how did you realize it so early? It usually takes much longer to find that little trick. It was a legitimate question. Mostly due to the fact that it took Kakashi several months to realize it. How could an idiot find it out in less than 60 days? Instead of an answer, however, Kakashi was presented with a nasty, dirty glare. You kicked me in the nads, Naruto stated, hostility evident in his voice. Even though I never attacked you personally, in the test, you kicked a clone in the nads. It was kind of hard to miss that particular memory, Kakashi-sensei. Feeling the sweat drop growing on his head, Kakashi decided to let the matter drop. He didn't want to be pranked anytime soon, if ever. I see. Well, I'm really sorry. If you're sorry about it, then do something, Naruto yelled suddenly, giving the clear image of him being bipolar. As penance for giving me phantom pains for a week. You better teach me something. Got it? Naruto wasn't considered Konoha's most unpredictable shinobi for nothing. He's the only genin that would threaten a jounin. Without any substantial blackmail material to boot either. Still, his declaration had the wanted effect of appearing so hilarious that it brought the entire team, sans a confused Naruto, to laughter. Oi, why are you laughing? Oi. He tried to get it, but smarter he might have become, but also he had become more insane. But that did not prevent him from working on his new leaf jutsu. Maybe he should call it Haten, leaf release, instead of Konoha Ninpo? Would certain types of leaves work better? Maybe if he could infuse leaves with his chakra, in a raw form, and then withdraw it or shape it after? Then again, he had so much chakra it would be pointless to do so. So, for now, he worked on making his Konohagakure smaller so he could control it easier. Wouldn't do to blind his team while trying to do it to his enemy, right? But for now. Hey, Kakashi-sensei, I saw you kawarimi at the test when Sasuke threw some kunai at you, but you didn't use any hand seals. How did you do it? It was a necessary part for his new technique, or collaboration jutsu as it were. Oh it's simple really. Once you use a technique enough, you can start removing hand seals from it until you don't need them anymore. Don't expect to do it anytime soon, you'd have to do it hundreds of times. Kakashi tried to squash Naruto's hopes. It didn't work, the blonde just grinned and thanked his sensei, his crazy mind already working on hundreds of times? No problem, he was hundreds of people. Speaking of Naruto, how did you know where I was in that mess, Sasuke? Asked Kakashi, he was still curious. The raven-haired boy nodded grimly. Seems the Dobi has better control than we thought, he made them converge on you mostly. Not to say it was much better for me, but you looked like they had completely covered you. While Kakashi hummed, Naruto instead had his eyes glaze. Covered by leaves, sticking on him. Stiff leaves, hard as leather or almost steel, an armor that wouldn't be near as cumbersome since he could control it with his chakra. A small, giggle-like chuckle escaped his lips. Jutsu were awesome. More jutsu. More ideas hopping around in his head like rabbits on speed. It was safe to say that every member of Team 7 wisely backed away from the less than sane blonde. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. Several dozen clones appeared, once again astounding poor Kakashi with the amount of chakra the boy had, before running off, identical crazed smiles on their faces. Admittedly, seeing so many crazed blondes running with a purpose towards some unknown objective, it made most of Konoha write their last wills. The boy had finally snapped. But the truth was that he was sane, for the most part anyway. Simply, he had more and more ideas on how to use leaves. Still, he had to finish his early projects first. Amusingly enough, Hizugi, he still refused to go by Sasuke's suggestion of Hisatsu Waza, would probably be harder to make, if much harder to actually execute. Which meant he had to use the Kawarimi no Jutsu thousands of times first to cut off the hand seals required for its use. And then he'd have to do the same with his Konohagakure. Of course, the second jutsu was more in order to master Hizugi, rather than to create it in the first place, but still it was a necessary part. Back in his home, another clone read a book on wind manipulation. Having swiped it from a retired Chunin's garbage bin, he was deep into it. After all, he had found out that he had a wind affinity, which made Konohagakure no Jutsu possible to make in the first place, but he still had to get better if he wanted to perform the rest of his techniques. Wind is an element that is all around us, we breathe it with every breath we take, we feel it on our skin and we need it for our very survival. However, wind users, not merely those knowing wind jutsu, but those who can use it freely, are by far the rarest in the shinobi community. They are at their most common in Kaze no Kuni, but even there they are few compared to Katen users. Many have speculated why that is so, why it is that an element so common and so in touch with everything is so hard to manipulate. Could it be some countermeasure to its great power? Could it be that we lack understanding of that force? No. It is neither. The reason stems from the physicality and yet ethereal nature of wind. Despite it having a physical representation, it is still treated as an energy much like fire or lightning. It is this dual nature that makes it so hard to understand and use. As a widely accepted belief, the first step to learning to use wind chakra is to try to cut a leaf in half. However, that is merely a primer on its combat uses, a quick and dirty way to quickly learn to use wind chakra for combat. True wind manipulation, on the other hand, uses the power of the wind for more things. As every element has its niche, something that it is inherently good at, wind's most common ability is cutting. It is easy to create and launch a blade of wind, an invisible edge that cuts through all in its path, be it wood, stone or steel. One can easily reinforce a weapon with wind chakra, making them much sharper and increasing the cutting edge. More experienced ninja can cut an enemy several feet away. However, it need not be a solid blade. Once a certain level of mastery is reached, one can create a vacuum, a place with no wind pressure that, for lack of better words, implodes the target area outwards. However, that is not all the wind can do. With proper manipulation, one can enhance their speed, reduce falling speed, even deflect incoming projectiles and techniques. It is due to the constant presence and flexibility of wind that its hand seal is called dragon, the ever-present force. It also signifies the wisdom needed to wield the element, as even a small miscalculation, especially in new jutsu, can damage the user far more than the enemy. The clone hummed as it read and reread the passages. It had done so several times, but it couldn't help it. There was something in these lines, some hidden fact, just under the tip of its tongue that it just couldn't voice. It felt like a large hint, a huge idea, was hitting it on the head and it just couldn't put it to words. It was aggravating. Reinforce the blade. Wait, what? The clone's eyes widened as it read it again and again. Could it mean that wind users were good for reinforced jutsu? But then, almost right above it said about launching blades and such, that's an emit-type's signature way. No. No way. No freaking way, he shouted. Wind manipulation is so hard because it's using combined type archetypes. Then a whoop of joy as it realized he could very well be one of the few destined ones who can actually use, or better yet make, combined type jutsu. Hell yeah. I'm the best bio. But for now he had more work to do. He knew what its boss would want: learn how to use wind chakra. Aside from the method noted previously on quickly learning how to use wind chakra for cutting, there are several other exercises to be used for budding wind masters, those that actually want to use their element to the fullest. The first exercise is melding chakra into the air to feel the various currents and how they change. In actuality, this exercise has no ending. It serves to better understand the ever-changing element of wind. The next exercise is to take small, light items and levitate them off your palm. Leaves are the best for beginners. Once it feels comfortable to do so, the aspiring wind user may try to use other parts of the body to levitate leaves from, or levitate multiple items at the same time. The third exercise is cutting a leaf in half is the last exercise, even though it becomes usable in jutsu easier than the others. The last once is taking a small amount of water and lifting up small drops of it by sucking away the air above the liquid surface. These techniques teach how to feel the wind, create pressure, create blades and create vacuums in order. Further exercises and techniques involve combining these aforementioned four and increasing their magnitude, though individual villages may possess secret training techniques not easily available. To access those, a master would be needed, this world's most valuable resource. Levitate a leaf, huh? Naruto hummed as he took a small leaf and placed it on his palm. That would be awesome since it would train him to use less chakra with his Konohage core. Maybe even figure out what seals to add to the sequence so it can be easily usable by other Konoha ninja. Then his ingenious/insane mind had another idea: leaves that could levitate on their own. Maybe he could make them stay there, in the air, without any chakra spending after using the technique. If he could do that, then he could almost walk on air. It would be awesome. Of course, that would require extensive planning, maybe even a meld with Fuinjutsu, since he would need to seal his chakra into the leaf to sustain the levitation. Fuinjutsu. Ideas everywhere. Raise your voices into the air. Shout them out, make a clatter, fill this mind with endless rattle. The ensuing evil laugh that issued from the demon's house was foreboding enough that no civilian would approach it for months. And so it was that Naruto began unleashing clone after clone in an effort to put his ideas to practice. Of course, he knew he couldn't do everything that came to mind. Even he couldn't do that. Instead, He used his clones to write down the best ideas and slowly work them out. So, while some clones worked on wind chakra control, the better to understand which hand seals they should add to Konohagakure, some of them would break off from the others when inspiration struck, write down their ideas, practice them until they could no longer and, if they had more time left, go back to their original training. Because making techniques required a great amount of understanding, it also meant learning a lot, which in turn forced Naruto to study even more than he had originally planned. He hadn't started on Fuin Jutsu. He thought he should start with at least some Konoha Ninpo jutsu that would define him and his style before branching out. He was good with multitasking, Cage Bunshine's the ultimate tool for that, but even he had his limits. Or more like, if he learned things that were too diverse from each other, it gave him headaches that made the worst migraine seem like a pleasant lullaby, not to mention possibly also damage his brain. And considering the brain was a necessary part of jutsu making, not to mention living, he was quite keen on keeping it healthy and happy. So, for now he was content with his Haten or Konoha Ninpo. He still wasn't sure what he should name them. Still, at the end of the day, all this reading did Naruto a lot of good. It didn't smarten him up, but it did mellow him out. It gave him a way to use his common sense and the street smarts he had gained in his short life as a vagrant. Sasuke actually looked at him as if he were more than an insect under the mud under the sole of his sandals. Sakura-chan still didn't like him much, but at least she tolerated him. That had to mean something, right? Unfortunately for the blonde, it was much less than he hoped it did. As for Kakashi, the Jounin kept getting more and more impressed every day. The Gaki might have the most insane ideas, but somehow he still managed to play them just right to make them work. Which is why Kakashi had them do several D-rank missions every day now, so he could take his brats out for a C rank early on. Something simple, like taking an item to a village within a time limit. Nothing much but just enough to let them know of the world beyond the gates. Who knows, it may even give the brat some more ideas. Granted, most of them were insane and impractical, but skills like the Konohagakure were pure gold at the hands of someone who can use them properly. So, it is obvious that Kakashi's surprise was great when Naruto called him over while on the job, bouncing up and down excitedly. Kakashi-sensei. Kakashi-sensei. I made a new jutsu. Look, 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 he said and showed a leaf floating above his hand. You made a leaf float? Kakashi deadpanned. He expected more than just a floating leaf but... Wait, what? There was a distortion on the wind around the leaf? He was lucky he could pick that little detail out, probably because he had something stable to compare it to. Naruto, what's that technique? He asked, curious this time. Well, sometimes, you just run out of shuriken, right? Or you don't have time to pick them up or something. Or you just want to surprise someone, right? So, I made this. Konoha Ninpo, Konoha Shuriken. I put in my chakra to make it really stiff and then some wind chakra to give it an edge. Watch this. Right after, the excited blonde threw the leaf at a tree. Or rather 3 inches into the tree. Kakashi gaped. Imagine an enemy knocking you to the ground. You cower and scramble for help, inconspicuously clawing around for traction. Then you pick up a leaf. As the enemy readies to deliver the final blow, you throw the leaf, straight into their throat. Or any other vital spot for that matter. Instant surprise counter killer move. Well done, Naruto. That's a useful little jutsu, if you can surprise your enemy. Of course, after the first time it's used, no one is going to fall for it of course, but it could help. Naruto nodded semi-sadly. I know, but it isn't ready yet. At Kakashi's inquisitive look, Naruto rubbed the back of his head. Well, more like, I originally wanted to throw the leaves as well. With my chakra I mean, but I just can't get it right yet. Maybe I need more training, dunno. But I was really thinking about the name, something like Konoha Ninpo, Haten, Leaf Ninja Art, Leaf Bullet/Shot, or something like that. Seems I have to train more. Chuckling uncomfortably was all Kakashi could do. It seemed one of the world's most innocent items would soon become something fearsome. Chapter 3, Saishu no Hanasaku. First Bloom. As days passed and Team 7 performed more and more missions, though to their chagrin none of them were more than a glorified chore, all members save Naruto noticed something strange about the blonde. No, it wasn't how he didn't act like a complete retard, or that he had gotten over his crush on Sakura, which he hadn't. He was simply too deep into thinking about his jutsu to really think about her. It was how quick he was at growing stronger and stronger. It was as if every day he became visibly more skilled. Normally, that would delight a teacher, especially one as bored and inactive as Kakashi. After all, if his student grew so fast on his own, that left more time for Icha, right? But Naruto was anything but normal. He had been worse than an idiot. He had been the most retarded student in the whole damn academy. And now you expect Kakashi to not be worried when the boy suddenly seemed to gain insight and power that he shouldn't have? Preposterous. He cared for each and every one of his students. He knew everything there was to know about them. Well, not really, he knew far less than he'd like to admit, but he still cared for his brats. They were his brats. Until they made Chunin anyway, where he could just dump them to someone else or something. Icha comes first. Always. Still, it was worrying for the copy ninja, and the rest of the team as well. Even though Sasuke would never admit it, he was curious, and so was Sakura. The latter was more along the lines of annoyance, since she kind of missed the old Naruto, and his constant work at keeping her happy, but let's just say she cared. In some convoluted, incomprehensible way that tsundere girls do. Kakashi was more worried about the source of the intellect. Or more like how furry that source was. Could it be the Kyuubi? Could the demon have broken free? Could it be twisting the boy into an omnicidal maniac with a fetish for slaughter? All joking aside, he was worried. So, he did the logical thing. No, not stalk. Who stalks people anyway? Far away, one certain Hyuga sneezed and promptly fainted from embarrassment. No, he acted like a logical adult, one of the few times so far in his life, and decided to ask Naruto. Say, Naruto, you've been improving rather fast lately. Care to share the secret to success? He asked kindly, or as kindly as a man can ask with 75% of their face covered. I guess I shower lots? Q blinking. No wait, that's the other line. I guess it's 'cause I work out a lot and then eat a lot and then sleep and then work out a lot. I do this all day, so it's really good for me. Kakashi sighed and sat down next to the boy. It wasn't about physical growth he was worried, anybody could work on that, it was the mental growth he cared for. Not that. I mean, you are smarter now, you don't shout as much and you actually make sense. It's not a bad thing, I'm just curious, that's all. Well, I don't shout that much 'cause my head hurts most of the time from the training. If I shouted as well, it would be killing me, sensei. But, I guess it's because I started reading for a change. Hell, I'm still reading right now. Kakashi, and the other two members of the team, blanked. Naruto, you're not reading right now. You don't have a book in front of you to read from. He drawled out slowly, trying to make sense of the blonde. Sure I am. Wait, no, I'm not. Well, I am, but it's not I, it's me and... Well. He stopped ranting and took a look at Sakura's face. She was almost the most expressive of them, seeing as how she lacked a stick up her bum and had more than 50% of her face revealed. You think I'm crazy, right? Well, I'm not. I'm not crazy. I really am reading. It's about the second Hokage and various fungi indigenous in Rai no Kuni, he shouted, getting up suddenly and almost sending Kakashi rolling away. What does the Hokage have to do with fungi? Sakura's question came, along with a "I think you should see the nice people in the white coats" look. One has to wonder how so many words can be transferred with a look and why language was made if looks could say so much, but I digress. It doesn't. They are completely unrelated. If it was the first Hokage, I'd wonder, but the second had nothing to do with it, he never even went in Rai no Kuni. Naruto kept on going crazy. Don't you see? There was a frantic look in his eyes now and Kakashi was slowly, calmly moving closer to the blonde. The boy needed help. Easy Naruto, calm down and talk about it calmly. I'm sure we can all resolve it peacefully. Well, even Kakashi had learned a bit of psychology. Calmly? Calmly? You think I'm crazy? You all think I'm crazy, don't you? Naruto backed away. But you are the crazy ones. Who the hell reads about the second Hokage and various fungi indigenous in Rai no Kuni anyway? Sasuke decided to end this with his characteristic, one-word way. You. What? No. They are completely unrelated things. I'm reading on the second Hokage and on various fungi, But it's not I who's reading. At that moment, Kakashi wondered if Naruto had taken a hands-on attempt to research mushrooms and ate a few of them. Pretty colors and all that nice things. Giggle. No bad, Kakashi. Think about the wonders of psychotropic flora while in huge orgies another time. Your student needs you. Naruto. How can you be reading books when you don't have one on you? He tried to bring the discussion back to normalcy. I can't, of course. How could I? Naruto deadpanned. But I'm not reading, me is, or was. Guess me ran out of chakra and popped. Damn, wanted to know what happened next. Wheels began to turn in Kakashi's mind as he took in that last sentence. Naruto. Who exactly is the I that was studying? Eh? A cage bunshine of mine. What? Who did you think it was? It's just so confusing to name them, so I just call them me. Do you know how hard it is to name 1000 yous every time you summon? One name is enough. The crow that flew over the stunned team sounded awfully like cawing idiot, but Kakashi tried to ignore it in favor of sighing. Oh, you were using the cage bunshine's secret, the ability to transfer memories when the clone dispels. I was worried there for a second. Still, how did you realize it so early? It usually takes much longer to find that little trick. It was a legitimate question. Mostly due to the fact that it took Kakashi several months to realize it. How could an idiot find it out in less than 60 days? Instead of an answer, however, Kakashi was presented with a nasty, dirty glare. You kicked me in the nads, Naruto stated, hostility evident in his voice. Even though I never attacked you personally, in the test, you kicked a clone in the nads. It was kind of hard to miss that particular memory, Kakashi-sensei. Feeling the sweat drop growing on his head, Kakashi decided to let the matter drop. He didn't want to be pranked anytime soon, if ever. I see. Well, I'm really sorry. If you're sorry about it, then do something, Naruto yelled suddenly, giving the clear image of him being bipolar. As penance for giving me phantom pains for a week. You better teach me something. Got it? Naruto wasn't considered Konoha's most unpredictable shinobi for nothing. He's the only genin that would threaten a jounin. Without any substantial blackmail material to boot either. Still, his declaration had the wanted effect of appearing so hilarious that it brought the entire team, sans a confused Naruto, to laughter. Oi, why are you laughing? Oi. He tried to get it, but smarter he might have become, but also he had become more insane. But that did not prevent him from working on his new leaf jutsu. Maybe he should call it Haten, leaf release, instead of Konoha Ninpo? Would certain types of leaves work better? Maybe if he could infuse leaves with his chakra, in a raw form, and then withdraw it or shape it after? Then again, he had so much chakra it would be pointless to do so. So, for now, he worked on making his Konohagakure smaller so he could control it easier. Wouldn't do to blind his team while trying to do it to his enemy, right? But for now. Hey, Kakashi-sensei, I saw you kawarimi at the test when Sasuke threw some kunai at you, but you didn't use any hand seals. How did you do it? It was a necessary part for his new technique, or collaboration jutsu as it were. Oh, it's simple really. Once you use a technique enough, you can start removing hand seals from it until you don't need them anymore. Don't expect to do it anytime soon, you'd have to do it hundreds of times. Kakashi tried to squash Naruto's hopes. It didn't work. The blonde just grinned and thanked his sensei, his crazy mind already working on hundreds of times? No problem, he was hundreds of people. Speaking of Naruto, how did you know where I was in that mess, Sasuke? Asked Kakashi, he was still curious. The raven-haired boy nodded grimly. Seems the Dobi has better control than we thought, he made them converge on you mostly. Not to say it was much better for me, but you looked like they had completely covered you. While Kakashi hummed, Naruto instead had his eyes glaze. Covered by leaves, sticking on him. Stiff leaves, hard as leather or almost steel, an armor that wouldn't be near as cumbersome since he could control it with his chakra. A small, giggle-like chuckle escaped his lips. Jutsu were awesome. More jutsu. More ideas hopping around in his head like rabbits on speed. It was safe to say that every member of Team 7 wisely backed away from the less than sane blonde. Cage Bunshine no Jutsu. Several dozen clones appeared, once again astounding poor Kakashi with the amount of chakra the boy had, before running off. Identical crazed smiles on their faces. Admittedly, seeing so many crazed blondes running with a purpose towards some unknown objective. It made most of Konoha write their last wills. The boy had finally snapped. But the truth was that he was sane, for the most part anyway. Simply, he had more and more ideas on how to use leaves. Still, he had to finish his early projects first. Amusingly enough, Hizugi, he still refused to go by Sasuke's suggestion of Hisatsu Waza, would probably be harder to make, if much harder to actually execute. Which meant he had to use the Kawarimi no Jutsu thousands of times first to cut off the hand seals required for its use. And then he'd have to do the same with his Konoha core. Of course, the second jutsu was more in order to master Hizugi, rather than to create it in the first place, but still it was a necessary part. Back in his home, another clone read a book on wind manipulation. Having swiped it from a retired Chunin's garbage bin, he was deep into it. After all, he had found out that he had a wind affinity, which made Konohagakure no Jutsu possible to make in the first place, but he still had to get better if he wanted to perform the rest of his techniques. Wind is an element that is all around us, we breathe it with every breath we take, we feel it on our skin and we need it for our very survival. However, wind users, not merely those knowing wind jutsu, but those who can use it freely, are by far the rarest in the shinobi community. They are at their most common in Kaze no Kuni, but even there they are few compared to Katen users. Many have speculated why that is so. Why it is that an element so common and so in touch with everything is so hard to manipulate? Could it be some countermeasure to its great power? Could it be that we lack understanding of that force? No. It is neither. The reason stems from the physicality and yet ethereal nature of wind. Despite it having a physical representation, it is still treated as an energy much like fire or lightning. It is this dual nature that makes it so hard to understand and use. As a widely accepted belief, the first step to learning to use wind chakra is to try to cut a leaf in half. However, that is merely a primer on its combat uses, a quick and dirty way to quickly learn to use wind chakra for combat. True wind manipulation on the other hand uses the power of the wind for more things. As every element has its niche, something that it is inherently good at, wind's most common ability is cutting. It is easy to create and launch a blade of wind, an invisible edge that cuts through all in its path, be it wood, stone or steel. One can easily reinforce a weapon with wind chakra, making them much sharper and increasing the cutting edge. More experienced ninja can cut an enemy several feet away. However, it need not be a solid blade. Once a certain level of mastery is reached, one can create a vacuum, a place with no wind pressure that, for lack of better words, implodes the target area outwards. However, that is not all the wind can do. With proper manipulation, one can enhance their speed, reduce falling speed, even deflect incoming projectiles and techniques. It is due to the constant presence and flexibility of wind that its hand seal is called dragon, the ever-present force. It also signifies the wisdom needed to wield the element, as even a small miscalculation, especially in new jutsu, can damage the user far more than the enemy. The clone hummed as it read and reread the passages. It had done so several times, but it couldn't help it. There was something in these lines, some hidden fact, just under the tip of its tongue that it just couldn't voice. It felt like a large hint, a huge idea, was hitting it on the head and it just couldn't put it to words. It was aggravating. Reinforce the blade. Wait, what? The clone's eyes widened as it read it again and again. Could it mean that wind users were good for reinforced jutsu? But then, almost right above it said about launching blades and such, that's an Amit type's signature way. No. No way. No freaking way, he shouted. Wind manipulation is so hard because it's using combined type archetypes. Then a whoop of joy as it realized he could very well be one of the few destined ones who can actually use, or better yet make, combined type jutsu. Hell yeah. I'm the best bio. But for now he had more work to do. He knew what its boss would want, learn how to use wind chakra. Aside from the method noted previously on quickly learning how to use wind chakra for cutting, there are several other exercises to be used for budding wind masters, those that actually want to use their element to the fullest. The first exercise is melding chakra into the air to feel the various currents and how they change. In actuality, this exercise has no ending, it serves to better understand the ever-changing element of wind. The next exercise is to take small, Light items and levitate them off your palm. Leaves are the best for beginners. Once it feels comfortable to do so, the aspiring wind user may try to use other parts of the body to levitate leaves from, or levitate multiple items at the same time. The third exercise is cutting a leaf in half is the last exercise, even though it becomes usable in Jutsu easier than the others. The last one is taking a small amount of water and lifting up small drops of it by sucking away the air above the liquid surface. These techniques teach how to feel the wind, create pressure, create blades and create vacuums in order. Further exercises and techniques involve combining these aforementioned four and increasing their magnitude, though individual villages may possess secret training techniques not easily available. To access those, a master would be needed. This world's most valuable resource. Levitate a leaf. Naruto hummed as he took a small leaf and placed it on his palm. That would be awesome since it would train him to use less chakra with his Konoha core, maybe even figure out what seals to add to the sequence so it can be easily usable by other Konoha ninja. Then his ingenious/insane mind had another idea, leaves that could levitate on their own. Maybe he could make them stay there, in the air, without any chakra spending after using the technique. If he could do that, then he could almost walk on air. It would be awesome. Of course, that would require extensive planning, maybe even a meld with Jutsu, since he would need to seal his chakra into the leaf to sustain the levitation. Jutsu. Ideas everywhere. Raise your voices into the air. Shout them out, make a clatter. Fill this mind with endless rattle. The ensuing evil laugh that issued from the demon's house was foreboding enough that no civilian would approach it for months. And so it was that Naruto began unleashing clone after clone in an effort to put his ideas to practice. Of course, he knew he couldn't do everything that came to mind, even he couldn't do that. Instead, he used his clones to write down the best ideas and slowly work them out. So, while some clones worked on wind chakra control, the better to understand which hand seals they should add to Konoha core, some of them would break off from the others when inspiration struck, write down their ideas, practice them until they could no longer and, if they had more time left, go back to their original training. Because making techniques required a great amount of understanding, it also meant learning a lot, which in turn forced Naruto to study even more than he had originally planned. He hadn't started on Jutsu. He thought he should start with at least some Konoha ninja jutsu that would define him and his style before branching out. He was good with multitasking, Cage Bunshine's the ultimate tool for that, but even he had his limits. Or more like, if he learned things that were too diverse from each other, it gave him headaches that made the worst migraine seem like a pleasant lullaby, not to mention possibly also damage his brain. And considering the brain was a necessary part of jutsu making, not to mention living, he was quite keen on keeping it healthy and happy. So, for now he was content with his Haten or Konoha ninpo. He still wasn't sure what he should name them. Still, at the end of the day, all this reading did Naruto a lot of good. It didn't smarten him up, but it did mellow him out. It gave him a way to use his common sense and the street smarts he had gained in his short life as a vagrant. Sasuke actually looked at him as if he were more than an insect under the mud under the sole of his sandals. Sakura-chan still didn't like him much, but at least she tolerated him. That had to mean something, right? Unfortunately for the blonde, it was much less than he hoped it did. As for Kakashi, the Jounin kept getting more and more impressed every day. The Gaki might have the most insane ideas, but somehow he still managed to play them just right to make them work. Which is why Kakashi had them do several D-rank missions every day now, so he could take his brats out for a C rank early on. Something simple, like taking an item to a village within a time limit. Nothing much but just enough to let them know of the world beyond the gates. Who knows, it may even give the brat some more ideas. Granted most of them were insane and impractical, but skills like the Konoha core, they were pure gold at the hands of someone who can use them properly. So, it is obvious that Kakashi's surprise was great when Naruto called him over while on the job, bouncing up and down excitedly. Kakashi-sensei. Kakashi-sensei. I made a new jutsu. Look, he said and showed a leaf floating above his hand. You made a leaf float? Kakashi deadpanned. He expected more than just a floating leaf but... Wait, what? There was a distortion on the wind around the leaf? He was lucky he could pick that little detail out, Probably because he had something stable to compare it to. "Naruto, what's that technique?" he asked, curious this time. Well, sometimes, you just run out of shuriken, right? Or you don't have time to pick them up or something. Or you just want to surprise someone, right? So, I made this. Konoha Ninpo, Konoha Shuriken. I put in my chakra to make it really stiff and then some wind chakra to give it an edge. Watch this. Right after, the excited blonde threw the leaf at a tree, or rather 3 inches into the tree. Kakashi gaped. Imagine an enemy knocking you to the ground. You cower and scramble for help, inconspicuously clawing around for traction. Then you pick up a leaf. As the enemy readies to deliver the final blow, you throw the leaf, straight into their throat. Or any other vital spot for that matter. Instant surprise counter killer move. Well done, Naruto. That's a useful little jutsu, if you can surprise your enemy. Of course, after the first time it's used, no one is going to fall for it of course, but it could help. Naruto nodded semi-sadly. I know, but it isn't ready yet. At Kakashi's inquisitive look, Naruto rubbed the back of his head. Well, more like, I originally wanted to throw the leaves as well, with my chakra I mean, but I just can't get it right yet. Maybe I need more training, dunno. But I was really thinking about the name, something like Konoha Ninpo, Hadan, Leaf Ninja Art, Leaf Bullet/Shot, or something like that. Seems I have to train more. Chuckling uncomfortably was all Kakashi could do. It seemed one of the world's most innocent items would soon become something fearsome. Chapter 4, Aminaki no Midori, Green After the Rain. For your next mission you can walk some dogs, remove the stones in a field, babysit some children Murayu. Tora Schwan. Come back to mommy. Or go looking for Tora again, sighed the third Hokage, also known as Sarutobi Hiruzen. Naruto's reaction however was everything but as subdued as his cages. He fell to his knees pleading and bowing. Please. Have mercy. Anything but that. Please, Hokage-sama. I beg you. I implore you. Please. Please give us a better mission. Have mercy on us. Iruka tried to interrupt with a detailed listing of how Genin only do D-rank missions and blah blah blah. To be stopped by Sandaime's careless alright, if Kakashi also agrees. Ignoring Iruka's stunted attempts at disagreement, Kakashi looked away from his literature, only to find himself face to face with 3 begging faces doing the perfect imitation of a puppy's pleading eyes. He broke of course, no one can resist that technique, but he had to look cool while doing so. Well, it's alright by me. The brats have improved enough to take a simple mission on, nothing more than a C rank, something without fighting hopefully. Yada. One hyperactive blonde shouted at the top of his lungs before proceeding to bounce around happily. For all his headaches from cage bunshine overuse, some would say abuse, he was still as excited as ever. Of course, mere seconds after that he chose to crouch down on the ground, hugging his head thanks to all that pain he suffered. Still, it was easy to see a smile on his face, as well as on the faces of his teammates. They had all been so bored with D ranks. Really, what part of remove the weeds from the field turned them into better ninja? Lee and Guy could argue that it made them stronger, but really, that's just them. So. Piped up the blonde once he was done cringing. What kind of mission is it? Recover some long-lost, precious artifact? Save someone important? He had stars in his eyes now. Oh, maybe go in another country, incite a rebellion and win it with our awesome skills. The Hokage seemed to actually think about it, though he was mostly teasing the boy. Yeah, we could do that. But then you could just take the darn hat off my head, Naruto-kun. And then, I would have no hat to shield me from the harsh, hot sun. He chuckled at the boy that somehow seemed apologetic enough to start promising to get Gigi a new hat before becoming Hokage. But for now, let us stick to something simpler, like a relaxed bodyguard mission. Iruka-kun, please send Hazuna-san in, he said to the still stunned Chunin, almost laughing at the man's expression and near robotic movements. Who said that being a Hokage sucked? The client however wasn't as amused as the Hokage was, not at Iruka but at the 3 snot-nosed brats that would be escorting a super bridge builder such as himself. That little comment however resulted in Naruto cutting the man's sake bottle in half with a single leaf and then raising an eyebrow. Sasuke almost chuckled while Kakashi explained that even the village's dropout can kill a man with nothing but a single leaf, so maybe angering them wasn't exactly the best move on his part. As for Sakura, between scolding Naruto and gawking at the fact that Sasuke had, for once, expressed an emotion on his face, was too out of it to comment. Then Naruto asked the dreaded question, though no one knew it would be so until then. "So, how long will we be gone? Couple of days? 3 max, right?" It was right about that time that every member of Team 7 and a regretting Hokage realized that with Naruto never leaving the village, he had no idea what the word distance meant. "Ha, no way, we'll need 2 days to go there, 2 to come back, and we'll stay for at least a week," said Kakashi happily. His happy mood vanished when he realized Naruto had stopped dead in his tracks and in fact looked absolutely terrified, if that shaking was anything to go by. "Www what? No. That's a joke, right? Ha, very funny Kakashi-sensei, no way I'm gonna leave for more than a day. No fucking way." The fact that he cussed out made it all the more shocking. "Well, sorry to say, but yeah, that's the minimum amount of time we'll be gone, at least 9 days, if everything goes well. Better make preparations for 2 weeks, just in case." 14 days? No. I'm not leaving for 2 weeks. My pretty's going to suffer. They're going to die. I'm not leaving them alone for that long, not even for your hat, Gigi. Now that was cause for serious concern. Naruto would never say no to the hat. Because, as everyone knew, wearing the hat meant you were the cage. "Naruto, who's going to suffer?" asked Kakashi, crouching down to a frantic, hysteric even. "Naruto, my plants. They're going to die," he wailed, almost like having the funeral of a dear friend. "I have to water them and feed them. Even if someone else goes, they're going to feel so lonely without someone to talk to them." "You talk to plants? What, are you an idiot?" snapped Sakura, mostly due to being relieved it was something that unimportant. She should have kept her mouth shut because the glare sent to her by the blonde was absolutely freezing. "I'm an idiot? Who pulled us through Kakashi-sensei's test? Who has made 3 new jutsu? Who is it that supplies our team with dozens of clones to do our missions in 1/10 of the time? Call me an idiot if you will," Sakura, he hissed, omitting the honorific to show how upset he was. "But the scientific truth is that plants grow stronger and better when someone converses or sings with them. Even plants have souls." Then he had already switched to his morning child mode. "And I'm going to abandon them. What a cruel, harsh fate. At this time of year when I must carefully trim their leaves so they can be at their best, such a dangerous time to make sure no pollen goes to the wrong plant to keep the lines strong, after 6 years of careful planting and maintenance." And by now he was on his knees, a veritable mess. I am sure someone will go water them every couple of days," Kakashi chuckled uncomfortably. "Couple of days? Couple of days?" raged Naruto, fire in his eyes. "Do you not understand the careful precision needed to take care of a purple iris flower?" As soon as he said that, the sole female Anbu that stood guard gasped audibly enough she was heard outside the room. "The sealed room." "You cultivate purple irises?" Sakura's voice betrayed a shock poor Sasuke hadn't seen before, so he asked her why that flower was so important. "Sasuke-kun, purple irises bloom only once per year and need perfect conditions to do so or they become ruined. Their pollen is key ingredient in many aromatherapy essences, its stalk is a unique counter to several poisons and its petals can be sprinkled over food to maintain its freshness over a great amount of time. It's one of the hardest flowers to grow. In fact, whole greenhouses can be devoted to the cultivation of merely 10 pots." "Naruto, since when have you been growing your plants?" asked a rather shaky Kakashi. He had had his life saved by such innocent flowers, so he had taken his time to learn about them. Hearing that his clumsy, hyperactive, almost insane student actually could grow purple irises. "I said, for 6 years, haven't I?" asked Naruto back, wiping his eyes. And not only that, but this time is especially problematic. I'm hoping to crossbreed some of my plants. The previous year showed encouraging results, and I have to be there. A stasis field around my house won't work either, Basic level ones would ruin the delicate balance of humidity, and even advanced ones would ruin them due to the offset of time. There's nothing I can do. I can leave a clone behind for a day and maybe miss for another, maybe, but 10 days? 14 days? They're going to die. My pretties are going to die. Now he was tearing up again. Naruto-kun, I may have a solution. Piped up the Sandaime. Leave a dozen or so clones of yours behind, each to be placed in stasis. I will ask one of my most loyal jounin, Inoiki Yamanaka, to tend to your flowers, and you will have a clone released from stasis each day to watch over and provide instructions. Inoiki-san is very good with flowers. He is the head herbalist of Konoha. He knows a lot. He can help you even. But, just to be sure, I'll tell him to follow only your orders, alright? Naruto only nodded half-heartedly and made several dozen clones while the old man sighed and got his sealing kit. The boy wouldn't trust anyone but the Hokage with it. Meanwhile, Sasuke thought about making fun of the blonde about his obsession over a few flowers, but if he had snapped at Sakura, no one knew what he would do to him, and with the Konoha ninpa of his increasing in quantity and power, he didn't really want to find out. So it was with a heavy heart that Naruto left Konoha to go to the Wave Country, a fact he never stopped glaring at Kazunov for. The poor man looked very uncomfortable with Naruto, and with good reason at that. Who knew where the blonde was planning to send his cutting leaves next? At first it was calm and quiet, something the jounin was grateful for. I mean, if there was trouble, he'd have to stop reading Icha, and that's just not good, right? But, somewhere within him, the veteran shinobi, whom he hides unconsciously because one look from him would make half of Konoha's jounin to shit their pants, also noted that missions without trouble are the best. No losses, guaranteed gains. What's not to like? Which was why, when he sensed the trouble up ahead, he all but groaned. However, he was well aware that his genin had grown stronger, and with that, so had their pride. They needed a fight to show them that while they had grown, it wasn't nearly enough to take on a Chunin. So, when the bladed chain appeared all of a sudden, he acted shocked long enough for it to wrap around him, or his Kawarimi Bunshine combo anyway. Even if he hadn't detected their little illusion, he would have had time to replace himself 3 times by the time their chain was around him, let alone when it would have grabbed him. One down. The distorted voices of the 2 unknown ninja came before pulling hard on their chain and ripping Kakashi apart. Naruto, ranged support, Sakura, bodyguard, snapped out Sasuke, the team's leader. Naruto hadn't liked it, but Sasuke had the right mixture between Naruto's spontaneity and Sakura's patience to take the position. Didn't mean Naruto had to like it, but at least the blonde accepted it. Of course, speaking does not prevent one from moving and engaging in combat, proven by Sasuke, who immediately threw several kunai at the chain, pinning it on a tree, and withdrawing another pair for the melee that was about to begin. Having trained a lot under Kakashi, Naruto knew what Sasuke was going to do and exactly when he was going to dash left or right. So, using that, he sent forward several clones under guise of kunai. The attackers would be highly surprised by the sudden change. Besides, he had already mastered the Kawarimi to a point he could switch with someone else, say Sasuke for example. Kakashi had originally worried about the blonde. He hadn't seemed too stable before this. In fact, the more he had learned of him, the more he had worried about Naruto's state of mind, or rather the ingenious insanity that had afflicted him. There was no sign of that now. Apparently, the boy had found some books on proper shinobi conduct. He could do anything he wanted off duty, but while in a mission, or even worse a combat situation, he would turn into a proper shinobi, focused, controlled and lethal. While the left brother, Gozu, if Kakashi was right though it was hard to tell with twins, tried to claw at Sasuke, he was quite surprised to hit only a bunshine and find several kunai headed on him. He blocked, of course. Clawed gauntlets have the advantage of closing a gap in the defenses quickly enough, but he was even more surprised when, after the clanking sound that denoted the successful block, hands seemed to grab his hand. Hands that belonged to several orange-garbed kids, with a kunai in their other hand, quickly aiming for his arm. Gozu of course tried to reel back, but the clones had a firm grasp on his hand, which was attached to him, and quickly stabbed, ruining his hand until he could get to a medic. Of course, one did not become a shinobi, let alone a rogue, without some backups to fall back on. Biting back a curse from the pain, Gozu's left hand went to his pack and pulled out a ninjato. One good thing about him and Mizu was that they often changed positions in their attacks, hence they had both trained themselves to fight with either hand, becoming ambidextrous. He might not have enough strength to launch a proper offense, but Gozu was sure he could at least raise his clawed hand in defense. Alas, it was not to be. Kakashi had decided that enough was enough. The clones wouldn't last the attack, and no matter how well Sasuke was doing against a similarly disabled Mizu, who had caught a kunai with his kneecap and now cursing inventively enough to surprise Tazuna, it wouldn't matter in the end. A genin is a genin. A talented genin is still a genin. Sasuke and Naruto still had a lot to learn, but their progress was visible. So, with a burst of speed he was sure would amaze his students, he really didn't need to go full speed against Gozu and Mizu. The poor fools hadn't even realized they had only gotten a poor log, blessed it be in its loggedness. Well done team, good job. He praised his brats once they relaxed after finding their targets unconscious in less time than it takes to blink. Kakashi could honestly say he liked the unvoiced awe in their eyes. Then there was Tazuna. Two Chunin wouldn't have dared attack a Jounin like himself without good cause. He was quite famous after all. Neither would they go after a pair of genin. So why had these two attacked them? The only answer would lie with Tazuna. There were other answers of course, but Tazuna was the easiest one to investigate without going further into interrogation than he wanted to show to a bunch of genin. Who knew if the next Orochimaru hid beneath one of those innocent faces? So, anything you want to share with us, Tazuna-san? Ah, there it was, that flinch that every untrained person, and ashamedly enough many shinobi, made when caught red-handed. What do you mean, Hatake-san? Asked the nervous man, this time managing to draw the genin's eyes on him. Well, apart from never calling Kakashi-sensei Hatake-san before, the flinch when he addressed you and the fact you seem ready to bolt, Naruto listed off casually but making sure to ready a kawarimi with a stone just in case the man tried to run off. There's also the fact these guys would never have attacked a Jounin as famous as Kakashi-sensei or a bunch of new genin like us. So yeah, I think he means come clean now or something to that effect. And no way. I am just an average bridge builder that. Oh, would you cut that already? The act's getting more annoying than your regular behavior, you drunkard, Sasuke snapped. And what would you know, brat? Snapped Tazuna back. My country's dying because of a rich midget. My bridge is this country's sole hope of survival. Do you know how it is to see your people's spirit die day by day? My one grandson, merely half your age, thinks it's pointless to resist. But I'm not giving up. If I have to lie to a rich village that obviously doesn't need my meager leftover money, I'll do so. So, take your holier-than-thou attitude and shove it. The money I paid for a C-rank mission was all the money my country has. If you have to lie, I have to kill, Tazuna-san. Spoke Kakashi, a calm threat behind his words. Konoha may not need money in an obvious way, but there are many other ways you could have made up for the mission's cost. Moreover, you took 3 13-year-old kids, children who haven't been shinobi for more than a few months, and put them against people strong enough to evade capture from their home villages for years. Those two are the so-called demon brothers, Gozu, and Mizu, Chunin ranked missing ninja from Mizugakure. If it hadn't been me or had one of us been less careful, you would have one of these innocent children's lives on your hands. So you take your holier-than-thou attitude away from us before I shove it down your throat. Poor Tazuna reeled back from Kakashi's rant. In all the time he had seen the Jounin, he had been laid back, calm and polite. He definitely hadn't expected that harsh a reaction, nor had he expected Kakashi to look like he meant it. Look, I'm sorry, alright? It's just we've been stressed so much. People starving to death, workers abandoning the bridge, no food or money in sight. That bastard has locked down the entire country. I have to do something about it. I don't care if you're going to kill me, but do it after the bridge is built. Just let me take care of my family. Kakashi sighed. Despite his annoyance, anger even, he could see where the man came from. There was war and each fought their own way, Gato with his money and Tazuna with his building skills. Truth be told, he too wanted the damn thing to succeed, if not for the praise then for his own peace of mind, but that would mean putting his genin, his brats, in further danger. There was someone who often worked with the demon brothers. Alright team, time to discuss some things. Our client lied to us about the mission, as he has done so willingly, Placing a team in intentional danger, the protocol states that we should make an example in return. However, he seems to have had no choice, so we can skip the punishment part. Also, there is one more thing: the demon brothers rarely work alone. There is someone who often leads them, a jounin named Momochi Zabuza, one of the 7 swordsmen of the mist. If he were to attack, I would survive, but I am not sure I would be able to protect you as well. Zabuza is that strong, Kakashi-sensei? Asked Sakura, afraid. Kakashi only nodded solemnly. In this world, there are people younger than you but stronger than me. It is also possible that Zabuza may have more accomplices by his side. If that's the case. He let the words fade. At any rate, I call our actions to a vote. I vote against continuing the mission. What do you guys believe? All 3 genin thought about it. They were confident in their skills, Sakura much less than the boys. However, Kakashi was strong, like crazy strong. If there was a guy that could hold him off, or even beat him. Worse, if there was several such guys. They were confident, but their defeat at his hand made them realize that they were still only genin, as loath as a certain pair of them might be to admit that. Naruto made up his mind the easiest. I don't know about all that complicated country dies if I don't make a big-ass bridge stuff. He huffed. Nor do I care. But if I don't try to help them, I won't be able to sleep at night. Tazuna's doing his best, so we have to help him. That's what heroes do, right? Yeah, and we're the big damn heroes, huh? Snarked Sasuke. But you're right, if I backed off, I'm gonna wonder what would happen if I hadn't for the rest of my life. He also remembered Itachi's words, run, run and cling to life, live out a miserable, pathetic and unsightly existence. Well, if that's what the murderer wanted. Well, fuck him sideways with a morning star, damn it. He was Uchiha Sasuke, last of his clan, and he took orders from nobody. Well, except maybe the Hokage, Kakashi and his mother. Gods knew he still remembered the first, and last, time he cursed near her. His ass still hurt. Well, if the Dobi goes on alone, he's more likely to hop around hugging trees than fight. Guess someone will have to keep him in line, so I'm going as well. Sasuke finished, snickering at Naruto's indignant cries. None of the two would admit it, but that banter of the two was balm to their soul. They had both been so unbearably lonely that they sometimes doubted the world around them even existed. Their friendly banter and disagreement, it was like having reality prove itself as real, like a moment of clarity in a period of insanity. The fact they would both admit to being insane at any moment made it a bit more literal, but that's a different story, one that involves ramen, tomatoes, a log and a string, though someone would add a mouse. Seeing the other two agree, specifically Sasuke-kun, Sakura's choice was obvious. Well, since Sasuke-kun is going, I will go too. Fangirlism. The world's greatest scourge. No, I did not make a typo here. Every world's. Kakashi sighed. He could sympathize with the brats, pulling back from their very first mission was. It was a matter of pride for them. Then there was also the fact that Wave Country would die if they didn't do something about the situation. Very well, we're moving on. Sasuke, take point. Sakura, rear guard. Naruto, you and I take the sides, make some clones to scout, but keep them close. Taking their positions was done quickly and efficiently, helped along by hours of training. Many clones were also dispersed to help create a rudimentary perimeter. It wouldn't help much, but maybe, just maybe, they'd get lucky. That plan was quickly scrapped as they reached a river. Kakashi could easily cross it on foot. It was part of being a trained ninja for so long that he could do things nobody else expected, but his students couldn't do that yet. Well, Naruto might be able to, if he knew how. He had to have learned to control his chakra lest he burned out as leaves, but he hadn't taught them this particular trick. He resolved to fix that mistake as soon as possible. So, for now they would cross over on boat. Thankfully Tazuna had a friend that would take them to the other side. Through the mist, the grand creation of the bridge builder was slowly revealed like a ghostly silhouette. Amazing! Breathed out Naruto as he laid eyes on the building. Not one of the Konoha ninja could disagree, it was truly magnificent. Seamlessly falling back into formation, Tazuna hoped he would get to his home quickly. There was little time to waste. Gato's men would soon come out for patrols and, as much as he might have wanted to believe in the ninja escorting him, he didn't. What could three brats and a single man do? Suddenly, Naruto and Sasuke turned and threw a kunai each at a nearby bush, prompting Sakura to squeal in terror and surprise, while Kakashi quickly went to the bushes to see what his genin caught. A rabbit. Or bunny, whatever, he could never tell the difference. Women could apparently, but he was a hot-blooded male. Thank you very much. The only problem? Its fur was white. White fur. But it's summer, so why would it? Then came the expected "ooh shit" moment, and he quickly dealt to Sakura and Tazuna, pushing them to the ground. Get down. Not a moment too late either, as Naruto and Sasuke hit the deck, letting a spinning blade pass right through where their heads were and hack straight into a tree's trunk. Well, if it isn't Hatake Kakashi. I'm kinda honored to meet such a legend, Copy Nin. Spoke the man that seemed to phase into existence over the cleaver-like sword. I'd love to stay and chat, but, since I'd like to get this over with soon, would you mind giving me that, old man? Kakashi sighed. It was one of those days, wasn't it? First the demon brothers, then Gato, and now Zabuza? What god had he pissed off lately? I'm afraid I can't Momochi Zabuza. Even though he is a lying drunkard, he is still our client and honor demands we protect him. How about you let us pass today, demon of the mist? Exchanging pleasantries with a rogue ninja. Oh, the novelties of shinobi life, eh? Seems like we're at an impasse then. But you already knew that, didn't you? So, how about we get this show on the road? Kakashi sighed. He knew what was coming after. The technique that was perfectly fitted to Zabuza. There it was, that placement of his hands, twin ram seals, one in front of the chest and the other overhead. Kirigakure no Jutsu. Zabuza's voice intoned before the mist thickened and covered everything. 8 points, lethal and vulnerable. Liver, lungs, spine, clavicle artery, neck vein, brain, kidneys and heart. So, where should I go for first? Zabuza's voice came from all around the group, successfully scaring the crap out of the genin. Kakashi sighed. He knew he had to do this, but that didn't mean he had to like it. His hand went to his headband and pulled it up, revealing a weird eye, where his other was black. This one was a deep crimson red and had 3 tomos surrounding the pupil. The Sharingan. You could hear the capitals. And that was the moment that Naruto, ever the ingenious prankster and spunky brat, decided to make light of the whole situation. Well, considering the size of that chopper you're holding like it's feathers, I don't really think where you strike really matters. That was delivered with such a deadpan voice that even Zabuza chuckled. It was tons better for Sasuke. The poor boy was flashing back to that day thanks to the rogue's killing intent. Kakashi on the other hand laughed internally. He had been so preoccupied with his duel that he forgot to take Naruto into account. Naruto, give us a smokescreen, he ordered, smirking. The mist ninja was in for a nasty surprise. A smokescreen? Are you an idiot? I am a master at silent killing. I could kill you before you even realized it. On top of that, I've already placed a smokescreen, so its obvious visual impediments are to my advantage. So what? Oh, would you shut up, no brows? Naruto challenged, his love for riling people up awakening. What's that sword for? Compensating for something? While the poor rogue gaped at the boy's apparent gall and lack of fears, internally also admitting that the blonde probably had balls of solid steel to say that to him, Naruto was finished molding his chakra the way he needed to. It was necessary after all. He had to alter the jutsu just a bit, create more wind to blow away the mist and also charge more chakra for Izuki. Kage Bunshine no Jutsu, he whispered, creating several clones and hiding them before shifting his hands to his unique jutsu. Konohagakure no Jutsu. Wind picked up violently, tearing leaves from the trees and lifting them from the ground before spinning them randomly around. Naruto almost called it his shitstorm jutsu for obvious reasons. Kakashi couldn't help but smirk. Now it was a bit more even. Zabuza depended on extreme sense of hearing to find his targets. However, the fluttering leaves completely disrupted it. Kakashi on the other hand depended on his sense of scent, which the leaves did little to prevent. Sure, the wind impeded it a bit, but not nearly enough to stop a genius shinobi like himself. Drawing his trusty kunai, he charged. Clanging of metal against metal came through the leafy cover. Sounds of exertion and calls of techniques that the genin hadn't heard of reached their ears. In the middle of the shitstorm, Zabuza was being pushed back. Kakashi was of a very high level and, even though the Sharingan wasn't fully operational in such circumstances, He was still good enough to nail him a couple of times. He had also landed a couple of blows on the Konoha dog, but it wasn't enough to decide the battle, or even affect it significantly. Damn it. Fine, if it's like that, then it's time to take it up a notch. Allowing himself to be driven back was easy, back onto the water. Then, a quick half-sea afterward and a water clone came from behind him, quickly replaced with it in there. Kakashi stabbed it, destroying the clone and falling right into Zabuza's trap. Suten, Suro no Jutsu. Water rose around Kakashi and made a bubble of heavy liquid. A prison. Well, shit. Kakashi deadpanned. Then, frantic. Sasuke, Naruto, Sakura. Take Tazuna and run. He can't chase you while he's concerned with me. Surprised, and worried, by his teacher's cry, Naruto let up on his jutsu and gasped at what he saw. Kakashi-sensei was trapped. That was not good. Definitely not good. Well, when life gives you lemons, make orange juice and let the world figure out how you did it. Like hell we're running away, right, Sasuke, Sakura? Dunno about you Kakashi-sensei, but running away just ain't my style, you know? Let's kick it up a gear Tebayo. Chakra surged around Naruto and he grinned. His clones behind him sent several covert signals to Sasuke. The genius should be able to figure things out. Humph, disrespectful brat. I will teach you the meaning of fear and pain. For now, these clones of mine should be enough to finish things. And with a single seal, something that surprised Kakashi greatly, several clones of Zabuza rose from the water and walked forward, intent on killing Team 7. Naruto walked forward, taking point. He had to do this just right now. No second chances. He closed his eyes and focused. The words came to his mouth more in order to enhance his focus rather than for any true need. Hadon. Mori no Mi, leaf style, forest's eyes, he breathed out. Kakashi watched in surprise as the Konohagakure picked up once again. But not so strongly as before, it seemed more like an aura around Naruto. There was also this peculiar chakra that came from the leaves. To Naruto, it was an endless, black void, littered only by lights moving around him, carried on a wind of his creation. Where they flowed, it was free. Where they met resistance, he knew it. Zabuza could no longer hide from his eyes. Initiate second phase. Naruto's overhead hand, his right, suddenly lashed to the right and then to the left in a cutie movement before making a quick circle back to place. If you think you can fight me, then come, Zabuza. I am the leaf-style shinobi, Uzumaki Naruto. Humph, as you please brat. Die. He called out to the taunt and his clones flew forward. Naruto's clones also charged ahead, straight at Zabuza's clones while the originals remained rooted to the spot. Two cleavers flashed in attack. Two puffs of smoke. Nothing. Kakashi gaped. The clones. Konoha Ninpa, Ugi, Mori Ure. Naruto called out proudly. Zabuza's clones broke down to water as Naruto's clones appeared over them. Kunai wet with water. What? What happened? Sakura asked Sasuke, mirroring Zabuza's question. Only Kakashi had seen it, his Sharingan spinning in amazement. That ingenious brat. That's why he had asked me about Kawarimi. Leaves are normally too small to replace oneself with, but with the amount of his chakra imbued in them, it must be easier than a normal log. Also, thanks to him slowing down the Konohagakure, the clones could easily choose which leaf to replace with. The ball is now right in Naruto's court. Well done. While everyone gawked at Naruto, Sasuke wasn't about to let it go. Discreetly, he readied himself and left the open field, leaving a bunshine in his place. It wouldn't do much, but thankfully it would buy him the time needed. Naruto's clones charged Zabuza now faster and he replied by calling out several more of his clones. It was no use. As soon as the water clones attacked, Naruto's clones would instantly replace themselves with a leaf and attack. Of course they had to keep one hand constantly in a half-ram seal, but the Yugi was still imperfect. Still, they were winning. Sakura watched in awe as Naruto's clones seemed to flutter in tandem with the leaves, their master not once moving from his spot or opening his eyes. Eventually, Zabuza found the lag time needed between each substitution, but with the clones moving so completely randomly, it was hard to take advantage of it, even as he struggled, sweating more and more to keep up with the damn brat. How much chakra did the blonde have anyway? Sasuke instead smirked. 4 clones had followed him into the foliage and they all linked together their shuriken and wires. It would all depend on a moment's notice. Seamlessly, the clones replaced themselves with the ones fighting, with none being the wiser to the strings attached. Thanks to the rapid movement, none but Kakashi, whose eyes picked up the reflection of steel. He didn't have much time to think about it because in an instant, the trap was sprung. Shuriken came from the forest, circling around Zabuza, their sound unheard until it was too late thanks to the clones suddenly shouting now. Wires, sharp and hard, wrapped around Zabuza and the 4 clones dashed in 4 different directions, essentially binding up the ninja, breaking his prison jutsu in the process. What? When did these guys? Zabuza was beyond surprised. These greenhorns have managed such a plan? Unbelievable. The wires wouldn't hold him for long, he was strong enough to break them easily, but in that time, Kakashi rose from the water, looking like a wet dog ironically enough, glaring holes into Zabuza. Well, seems like we're on again. For the record, a move that worked once on me, won't work again. Zabuza. What followed after that declaration was a fight between 2 titans, 2 jounin that were fully deserving of their rank, unlike others. Cough. The end to the fight however was very anticlimactic. Just as Kakashi was ready to kill Zabuza, 2 needles flew out of the trees and stabbed Zabuza on the neck. Another ninja appeared then, claiming they had been hunting Zabuza for a long time and took him away for disposal. Mere seconds later, Kakashi fell over, unable to move. His Sharingan had exhausted him. Naruto was quick to follow, only not so badly off. He still had a lot of chakra and endurance, but Mori no Yurei and such an extended Konohagakure no Jutsu had sapped him pretty badly. Of course, that did not keep him from boasting to anyone with half an ear to hear. Moving to Tezuna's home was peaceful after that, even though they still made haste just in case. Once there in its relative safety, and in the arms of a very attractive woman, Kakashi was very happy to note. Kakashi called a team meeting. First of all, I should congratulate all of you. Even if you did nothing Sakura, just the fact you held your ground against Zabuza speaks volumes of you, trust me. Sasuke, Naruto, you also cooperated excellently and got me out of that nasty situation. Sasuke, your Shuriken Jutsu are top-notch, I don't think Itachi was ever as good as you are now, keep up the good work. He smiled and received a smile in return. Also, Naruto, good job with that jutsu of yours. You really caught me by surprise, replacing yourself with your own jutsu's leaves. It was a good name, Forest Ghost. Naruto smiled proudly. He had worked his ass off for this and finally, it was paying off. I know. I had to slow down the Konohagakure and reduce its spin so it's easier to control the Kawarimi. You actually have to predict where the leaf is going to be when the jutsu activates or else you'll end up completely off, you know? The half ram in front of my chest is responsible for the chakra mold but the other hand controls the spin and directions, that's why I did that with my hands, I had to remove a few spins. Then, when you have the spinning down to your desired level, ready the Kawarimi and choose a leaf, since you're making the jutsu, you know where it's going to end up. But getting the timing right is hard. There's also the Kawarimi that. Naruto. Why are you explaining the jutsu to us? Sasuke asked, rightfully curious. The blonde had even pulled out a few scrolls with the names of his jutsu on each scroll, except the Mori no Mi technique. Naruto just shot him a questioning glance. Why? Because I want to teach it to you, of course. I mean, it's natural, I'm gonna be a Hokage and the Hokage teach their shinobi all their jutsu. So, I'm going to teach you most of mine, some I'll keep for myself. I know it's selfish, but I just want a few jutsu for my own kids, you know? He looked strangely at Sasuke, almost not understanding why everyone looked at him as if he was from another world. Naruto? That's your jutsu, it's yours to use. You're not supposed to teach it to others. Kakashi tried to reason with his student. What are you talking about, Kakashi-sensei? Of course I'm supposed to. Iruka-sensei said that the Hokage teach their shinobi all their jutsu. So, I better start teaching my jutsu from early on. You guys are the first to learn them, to know if I'm gonna do a good job at teaching them and— Whoa, hold up Naruto. Iruka-sensei did say that the ninja of Konoha learn many jutsu from the Hokage, but that did not mean that every Hokage taught every single one of their jutsu. Sakura cut him off. Seeing him not understanding, she continued. It's true that every Hokage left several jutsu behind for the rest of us, but they didn't leave us everything. Each of them had unique techniques that they taught no one. Some jutsu are just for yourself, you know? Besides, you invented these techniques from scratch, don't you feel it's, I don't know, bad to just give them away? Of course not. I'm going to be a Hokage, so I have to teach my jutsu. Iruka-sensei said so I'm going to do it. Naruto was definitely set on his current beliefs. Ugh, what a stubborn doby. Listen, if you had actually paid attention to all of the lecture, Sasuke stopped the blonde idiot savant, you would have learned that they only passed down some of their jutsu, the easier and more generic ones. Each technique is personal, you're not supposed to teach your jutsu to anyone. It's actually an insult if someone tries to learn something you developed from you, unless you offer first. New jutsu are a very important responsibility, Doby, you need to respect them. Kakashi sighed, his head felt like he had a bloody hedgehog in his skull, trying to get free. Alright, you brats have just exhausted me with this. Go get some rest, tomorrow, I'll teach you something important. Also, Naruto, do not teach your techniques to anyone, for now. I'll explain why later. Now let me sleep. Damned brats. He grumbled and dismissed them, wanting nothing more than to sleep. He hadn't even told them of the Hunter Nin's true purpose yet. Chapter 5, Shiromori, White Forest. Breakfast was a quiet affair, and somewhat painful from Kakashi's viewpoint. Still, it had been good to see everyone fine. Gods know how many assassinations happened while the victims were asleep in the safety of their own homes. Kakashi had done several of them himself. Tsunami was a very capable housewife, however, apparent by the fact that despite their meager food supplies, she was able to whip up a hearty, fulfilling breakfast. There was of course a kid named Inari, who kind of made things depressing more than quiet, but Kakashi could deal with it. Same thing couldn't be said about Naruto, who reacted somewhat weird. Why are you trying anyway? You're all gonna die. God has already won, spat the little boy while glaring at Naruto and Sasuke, the two discussing various jutsu and how to combine their arsenal. Well, Iruka-sensei said that you only lose when you give up. Sides, I haven't survived so far in Konoha by being easy to kill, neither's Sasuke or Kakashi-sensei. Sakura-chan has a bit of work ahead of her, but I don't think she's just going to lay down and die. Oh yeah, and who's that Iruka-sensei guy, huh? I bet he's just another loser. Ooh. Shit piss. Kakashi and the rest of the team thought, while Naruto seemed to simply lose emotion. For an emotionless glare, there were few things that could rival it in hostility or creepiness. Listen here, brat, Naruto spat venomously, making Sakura shiver, remembering the last time he spoke like that. If you ever disrespect Iruka-sensei in front of me, I'm going to rip out your guts, tie them around your throat and hang you from the ceiling, got it? And if you ever even imply anything bad about my friends, I'll make death seem like the sweetest release possible. Go die in a ditch, loser. Death's already better than life, isn't that why you're thinking? So why don't you do us all a favor and slit your wrists, you damn crybaby? Ignoring the shocked look from his team, though Kakashi also had an underline of sadness and Sasuke one of vindication, Naruto stormed out of the house. He only stopped at the door to look back and tell them he was going to look for a good place to train. Then he was gone. Whatever. He just made it up. Doesn't like that someone's actually suffered while he had his family coddling high. Further talk from the boy was halted violently when Sasuke leapt at him, brought him to the ground and stopped his kunai less than an inch from the boy's right eye. Made up? Coddled? Sasuke spat out venomously. One thing he shared in common with the blonde was that they had both suffered, they had both known loss. You pathetic little weakling, what do you think you know of pain? Of suffering? Of sorrow? Of loneliness? Sasuke was shaking now, his eyes red with fury. Suddenly he pulled back. You are not even worth killing. At least you have your mother and your grandfather. I lost my entire clan in one night to my own brother and Naruto. He never had anyone to begin with, instead he had to shoulder glares and insults from the entire village. I'm following the Doby, I'll make sure he's alright. Wait, Sasuke-kun. Sakura made to follow her crush, but Kakashi quickly held her back. Kakashi-sensei. I have to go to Sasuke-kun. And do what? He needs time to calm down now. We'll get to them soon enough. Both of these boys. They have suffered far more than they should have. Only war victims can say they have felt more pain. To handle all that pain as well as they have until now, they are much stronger than any of you here may think. Kakashi finished calmly, giving a very sharp look at both the boy and his female student. Anyway, Sakura, go fetch my med kit from my bag. I'm going to show you a few tricks for field medics. Most of that stuff isn't in books, it's things you learn by experience. Might as well get you as much as we can. Sasuke found Naruto only a few minutes walk away from Tasuna's home. The blonde was furiously punching a tree. Impressively enough, he had already made a dent into the wood. Life's not fair, you know. Sasuke began, nonchalantly, though internally he was just as angry as his teammate. He could just control it better. I know. I've known since I was little. Why did other children have parents? Why did they laugh? Why did they have toys? Why did they have food and clothes? Naruto stopped punching the tree, instead preferring to lie back against it. I've known it, but that doesn't mean I like it. Instead, I get that damn brat thinking he's got it the worst. Hell, I'm sure someone has had it worse than the both of us combined. How could that damn brat just give up so easily? He just reminds you of yourself, right? Sasuke smirked against the glare, then his eyes softened as he took a seat next to Naruto on the same tree. Same with me. Sometimes, you just can't help but wonder, why did I get up this morning? Why am I even alive? Why don't I just give up? Giving up seems so easy sometimes, doesn't it? Just lay down and stop breathing. No more pain, no more worries, just silence, darkness and peace. But we're not meant for peace, is that what you say? Some part of us just likes going up against all that. What are we, masochists? That, or we've already gone off the deep end, trapped inside a dream within a dream. Or maybe, just maybe, we are simply stronger. What do you think? I'll take answer number 2 with a little bit of number 1. Then again, can you imagine any sane Genin fight a Jounin like we have? PSHH, we could make psychologists need psychiatrists. That's how messed up we are. It's not us, it's the world that's messed up, cried out Sasuke suddenly, throwing his arms in the air comically. Both Genin broke down laughing hysterically after that. Yeah, neither of them was exactly sane or even near it. An hour later, enough time for the both to calm down by Kakashi's reasoning, the two were found deep in a taijutsu match. Naruto was the first to speak, though Sasuke's eyes held the exact same words his teammate spoke. Oi, what the hell took you so long? Don't tell me there's something secret going between you two? The slight wiggling of his eyebrows made the secret quite clear, and both male Genin enjoyed Kakashi's gagging reactions. He wasn't a pedophile, for crying out loud, and Sakura's screeches of denial. Alright, if you feel well enough to joke, then you're good enough to train. It's a good thing we have a forest here too. You see, Zabuza is probably still alive. Hunter Nin dispose of their target's body where it falls, and Senbone are weapons that rarely kill. Even if it had been poison, it would have taken time to affect someone like Zabuza, no matter how potent the toxin. If that's the case, next time, we stand against not only Zabuza, but his accomplice as well. I can handle Zabuza himself, but you'd have to take care of that fake ninja. And knowing that Zabuza wouldn't cooperate with a weakling, he's bound to be good. Even together you probably wouldn't be enough. Or at least not without one of you dying, he amended, remembering how good their teamwork really was. So, the only way to win is by me power training you into a few tricks that may save your lives long enough for me to win and come to you. I'm sure that the other ninja is probably strong, but he can't be that good, can he, Kakashi-sensei? Asked Sasuke, quite upset that his skill was being called into question. I didn't even sense his presence, Sasuke. That makes him an expert in assassination. If he's Zabuza's accomplice, that also means he's good at striking from cover, so even Naruto's Konohagakure wouldn't be as useful. Your only chance is for me to eliminate his concealment and hope his direct combat skills are not better than his silent killing method. Now, here's the first real piece of training you're going to receive. I'd be surprised if you finish it in less than a week, but even if you do, you will continue training it. It's very important and useful. Now watch carefully. And with that, Kakashi walked, or limped, towards a nearby tree and began walking straight up. How? That's impossible, cried out Sakura, rather loudly. Stealth wasn't her forte. With chakra, duh. Deadpan Naruto. I mean, we can throw fireballs and stuff. Kakashi-sensei and Zabuza fought on water. Is walking vertically so hard to grasp? Obviously, he seems to be channeling a small amount of chakra to the soles of his feet. I saw the grass move a bit but not too much. Am I correct, sensei? Sasuke kept up the observations. He was good with that. But the books and the teachers hadn't said anything about walking on trees. She kept on her denials. Because, if they had, all of us would have tried and gotten injured. Also, can't have ninja training techniques just lying around pointlessly, even the basics can be used by the enemy. Did you already forget what Hunter Nin are all about, Sakura? Naruto sighed deeply. He had liked her for a long time, even now he felt something for her. However, the more he got to know her, the less he liked her, or at least that way. She was far too unbending, adhered to the rules far too much. Her imagination was about as interesting as a salted slug and, for all her smarts, she really didn't think that fast, only complicated. In short, they were too different for him to continue to go after her. Not to mention she insulted his plans. The fact that Naruto might have sneaked into the women's onsen a few days before being sorted into teams and saw the other girls, might have also helped his decision. Big might. Well, my dear cute Janan, what are you waiting for? Try it out for yourselves, Kakashi urged his students. It would be fun to see them fall and realize that it really wasn't as easy as it looked when you don't know how it works. That did not happen. While Sakura held back, likely expecting instructions from her teacher, the boys didn't wait. They each took out a kunai and glanced at each other, the message in their eyes clear: first up wins challenge accepted. Then they gathered their chakra to their feet and charged. Each took several steps up the tree when the bark under Naruto exploded outwards while Sasuke's foot slipped. Both of them, in a creepily identical way, leapt back and away, tumbled through the air and landed on their feet. Kakashi was impressed. They hadn't managed to go up, nobody did it the first time, but they had gone up further than he had expected. Yes, it's that simple. Channel a small amount of chakra to your feet and maintain it. As you saw, too little and you slip, too much and it blows up. Sakura, how about you try it? The pink cat looked somewhat indecisive but believing that a perceived shrug by her crush meant go Sakura. Conquer this and prove your love to me. She nodded determinedly and walked forward. Having a rough idea of how much chakra was needed, having seen her entire team succeed and fail at the endeavor, she gathered what she thought should be about enough and placed one foot on the tree. After making sure it was stuck well, she lifted the other and placed it on the bark. She adjusted the levels a bit, getting a feel for when she had too little or too much, and soon she had it down pat. It was tiring her, of course, it had to be a high-level training after all, but she managed to climb up the tree on her first try. Well, she actually managed it on her first try. Doesn't surprise me really, her chakra levels are so low she has control to rival me. Compared to the boys however, she's not even a drop in an ocean. Then he noticed the way Naruto looked at Sakura. That look, why don't I like that look? That's a bad look. It sticks, Naruto said, next to Sasuke. Her legs stick like glue. Well, duh, idiot, that's what we're doing. Kakashi did it too, remember? The Uchiha snarked. Internally he was curious though. It was that look Naruto had every time he came up with a new, insane, idea. Why, what's on your mind? Chakra is adhesive? But what if? And Naruto kneeled in front of Sasuke to a large pile of leaves. He made a single half-ram seal and stuck the same hand's pointer and middle finger inside. When he pulled it out, a leaf had been stuck. There was another leaf stuck to the first one, and a third, a fourth and several more, making a chain. No way, muttered Sasuke. The Dobi, the freaking dead last, had managed to make something brand new out of an exercise he hasn't even completed. What's this? Konoha Ninpa, Konoha Muchi, Leaf Ninja Art, Leaf Whip. No, I think I have to work it a bit more to make them go rigid. I was thinking a sword. Naruto nonchalantly responded, likely not really understanding just how abnormally rare it is to make a new technique on the drop of a hat. Kakashi however was shocked for another reason. Naruto had enhanced a series of items by only focusing on a single of them, an aura enhancement of sorts. How can he have the control to chakra enhance a dozen leaves at once and still not be able to perform tree walking? He raged internally. Then, he realized it. Naruto had learned how to enhance multiple leaves due to his tampering with his skills and tricks all the time. Nobody taught him how. He was self-taught. That meant that the boy had simply skipped several lessons. Naruto probably hadn't realized it when he did something other Genin hadn't imagined of yet. Damn, now he was feeling left behind. He could do that at his age too. Icha Icha, wherefore art thou, Icha Icha? Take this lonely teacher into your generous bosom. Alright, Naruto, make a clone or a dozen to look into your leaf sword whatever idea, but get back to work yourself. You too, Sasuke. Neither of you boys want Sakura to leave you behind? After all, if you master tree walking, it makes it possible to learn any type of jutsu. Hook, line, sinker and pretty damn near the entire bay the fisherman was in. Both boys shook themselves, one made a dozen clones, and as one they charged their trees. Ignoring them, Kakashi effortlessly leapt to where Sakura was, scaring her as she hadn't thought it possible to leap that far in such a condition. Hey, poor girl, he had taken on samurai squads in worse condition. As for you Sakura-chan, you are way too tired from just a simple hike. Do it a couple more times, it will help develop endurance. The pinkhead only mumbled something about how Sasuke-kun wouldn't like a butch woman and grumbled all the way down and up before and sitting down next to the tree to watch her Sasuke-kun. It made Kakashi sigh, really. The girl was so smart, theoretically, but she was incapable of applying her knowledge and brains in practice. She just couldn't. She froze in danger, spoke loudly when silence was needed and she never really made an effort. At least Rin had been. The Jounin shook his head reminiscing about those times was forbidden. So, he instead leaned back on the tree and watched over his students. His barb about them being left behind by Sakura had quickly urged them to work harder than before to make up. It was noon and the boys still hadn't gotten the hang of it, but Kakashi wasn't surprised. Even if Naruto had managed to do things with chakra he hadn't even realized he could. Chakra reserves the size of Naruto's were always hard to control. The blonde would probably never manage a high-control jutsu in his life, but it wouldn't really matter, or so Kakashi hoped. Sasuke was doing better, but the rate of his development was slower than Naruto's and that made no sense. Could it be that the Uchiha was limiting himself until Naruto could surpass him, only to have a rival? No, it was different. These two, if Kakashi wasn't sure they were heterosexual, he would have worried about them. But even so he was worried. Their troubled lives had made them connect with each other, form a bond much stronger than the one they had to their own home. If one of them deserted the village, the other would follow. Sakura on the other hand cared little for Naruto except for the fact that the blonde baka got way too much attention from her Sasuke-kun. How dare he? He was just a no-name loser, the dead last. Even if he had gotten better, she couldn't deny that, he was still inferior to her. She was sure of it. After all, she was smarter and she had a family, she was better than him. But Sasuke-kun talked to that baka so much more than her that Sakura was worried. How did that useless stubby manage to get her Sasuke-kun's attention so completely? It was impossible. Sasuke-kun loved her after all. Not once did the pinkette wonder that maybe, just maybe, the raven-haired Genin simply didn't care about her or that maybe everything that she knew of him wasn't close to the truth. Ignorance is bliss as they say, obviously portrayed by fangirls. Sasuke on the other hand was far more accepting of the blonde. He had learned early on in his life that power equals respect. No power means no respect, so he had nothing of the sort for Naruto. Now however, the blonde improved faster and faster. He was no genius, he was a prodigy. Sasuke knew himself to be a genius in all ninja arts, be they genjutsu, ninjutsu or taijutsu, anything that was taught he swallowed it up. But not Naruto. The blonde didn't bother with traditional methods, he made his own. Sasuke knew he was stronger than the blonde. Even if they both developed fully, they would be equals and different only by their tactics. That's why he respected and accepted Naruto so much. Not only as someone who had suffered greatly yet only became stronger for it, if also a bit less sane, but also as someone who worked his ass off and actually became strong. What use is a weak rival after all? What use is a friend that does not relate to you? To Sasuke, the feeling of friendly competition and unreserved camaraderie was reminiscent of his family, in the best way possible. It healed his soul. The same went for Naruto. In the utter darkness of his loneliness, he had found friends, more than friends, anchors to his sanity. Iruka-sensei and Gigi believed in him. Kakashi-sensei taught him. Sakura-chan was there to bring him back to earth when he went overboard. And Sasuke was just there. He was there to remind Naruto that he was not alone in suffering, loneliness or even drive. What more could he ask for than a friend, rival and comrade all in one? So long as Sasuke was there, so would Naruto be there as well. And God's help any poor fool who tried to get between them. Now, if he could only take care of his pretties like they deserve to. How they must be suffering in the hands of a foreign cultivator. How could he ever conceive to know how to hug them and caress them and feed them properly, how to talk to them and listen to them? The next few days went on like that, much to the anger and angst of Inari and annoyance of just about everybody else. The brat just didn't seem to realize that when life gives you lemons, you should make lemon and vodka and share a drink with her. Naruto and Sasuke were making good on their mutual challenge of who would master tree walking first, often spending their downtime sparring to let their chakra recover. It wasn't such a problem for Naruto, but Sasuke still ran out occasionally and just couldn't stand doing nothing while his blonde rival still trained. At least their sensei was always there to break up their fights if they got too serious and provide them both with excellent advice. Unsurprisingly, Sakura did the absolute least of work. She preferred to ogle Sasuke, berate Naruto and occasionally, and under direct command, go up a tree or two. She had Sasuke-kun and Kakashi-sensei after all. It didn't matter how much Naruto or Kakashi tried to urge the girl to work harder, she only did so under Sasuke's HN agreements and ever since she saw the desolate place that Wave Country had become. Something about the hopeless atmosphere urged the girl to try a little bit harder. It was a shock to her to see children beg for dregs of food. In the end it sort of became a habit for the team to let Naruto and Sasuke practice until they came back. Both of them were so stubborn and hard-headed that they just couldn't handle defeat. They simply did not accept it unless they couldn't lift their tired and beaten bodies from the floor. Tsunami, Inari's mother, was at least kind enough to leave them a few plates of food for them to come eat whenever they were done with training. Naruto even told Sasuke he could use his fire jutsu to heat up the plates, not as a combat technique but more to get a feel for freeform chakra manipulation, much like the blonde often did himself via lifting leaves and other items. Sasuke hadn't believed it to be very useful, but he reneged on that belief when he suddenly belched out a small gout of fire during a heated taijutsu match, straight into his right hand. He had managed to burn off all the hair on his hand, but Kakashi had been fast enough with his water canteen that no further damage was dealt. This was going to be one of their last night in peace, Kakashi had told his team. Near-death states were hard to recover from, especially considering the beating the rogue had suffered. Kakashi didn't take too kindly to his team being threatened, but if the second ninja had such knowledge of acupuncture then he probably also knew how to treat wounds. Overall, it would take the man a week to recover, thankfully a little more than what Kakashi had netted. Though the legendary shinobi could have fought even with a single day of recovery, he would definitely not be able to face a ninja at Zabuza's level. Sasuke and Naruto decided that enough was enough. They needed that training completed, darn it. How dare to oppose them, future Hokage and Uchiha elite. Usually bother were quite humble, but this time they just had to do it. They couldn't let their teacher down, nor each other. Annoyance that Sakura had gotten it down at her first try was also a factor. So, as they were wont to do, they trained and trained and trained until they got it right. Only to fall unconscious approximately 10 seconds after their victory as their adrenaline rush died out. They awoke the next day to an unfamiliar presence, a girl dressed in a flowery kimono with a small wicker basket in hand, several herbs sticking out. While Naruto didn't much react to a foreign presence so near to him, despite his harsh life he hadn't really developed the shinobi instinct of constant vigilance. Sasuke did react by rolling away and palming a few kunai. One would argue that tormenting someone about the death of their family made for a good training tool. That person would get violently dismembered by a certain Uchiha. The girl seemed to reel back and away from the two Genin, surprised and frightful. Understandable really. Oh, I'm sorry, I was just worried you had caught a cold or something. She spoke hesitantly. Inwards she was also wondering about why the two were sleeping side by side. To her understanding, which granted did not amount to much, Such closeness pointed to specific kinds of relationships. Unfortunately for yaoi fangirls, nothing of the sort went on between Naruto and Sasuke. However, the night was chilling and warmth was precious. Not to mention the fact that alone they could easily speak with each other without having to show anything but who they truly were, traumatized children struggling to maintain what little sanity they had left in a world so cold to them. Talking with someone who can understand you under a starlit sky can be very cathartic. Unfortunately, the overactive imaginations of people who never had the chance to go though something like this simply makes doing so forbidden. Nah, we're fine. Thanks for waking us up though, we must really get back to training. Naruto rambled in his characteristic manner. Sasuke just stretched out letting HN escape him. Train? Whatever for? The girl asked. Well, we're ninja, shinobi, you know? So we have to train to become stronger and stronger. Right Sasuke? HNN. He said yeah, don't worry, after a few months you could decode his words too. He's just shy. Naruto's barb obviously managed to draw attention from the raven-haired boy and he returned a violent "I'm not shy, Dobby," making the girl giggle. You two are funny, she giggled some more. But do you have a special reason to get stronger? People become truly strong when they defend their precious people. Do you have someone like that? She asked, head tilted to the side, innocence rolling off her in waves. HN. No. Sasuke replied, looking away. His dear brother had seen to that. Aw, don't be like that team. You do have precious people, you have me and Kakashi-sensei, and Sakura if she ever got serious too. A team's like a family you know? Then what are you, the idiot uncle? The snark wasn't at all hostile really. Nah. I'd prefer that crazy old bat of a gardener with killer ninja moves that far surpass everyone else and is worshipped by women. Naruto hyphenated his own name. Of course, Sasuke couldn't let that chance at some banter pass him by. How about the idiot that everybody is ashamed of? Much closer to reality, Dobe. Further disagreement was interrupted by further giggling from the girl. You two seem to be getting along pretty well. Are you each other's precious person? She asked, looking at them strangely. Each other's precious per oh god no. Naruto screamed and went to the side, dry heaving. No, just no, no. Similar sounds were copied by the other boy. Where did you get that idea from? Gods above, I need brain bleach. Sasuke could have made many pointy remarks about Naruto at that moment, but he was much more preoccupied with trying to withhold his own rebelling stomach. Brain bleach indeed. Oh. The girl realized she had misread their circumstances. The place was rather chilly at night, well for most people anyway. I'm so sorry. I just... You were really close and... Yeah, Naruto spat some bile off his tongue. But it gets rather cold at night, couldn't walk back home, we had ran out of fumes to run on. But, Shishne-chan, next time keep those dreams to yourself, please. The girl got up, still giggling demurely, hand before her mouth. Oh my, look at the time, I must have been out for longer than I thought. I really have to get back now, I have to treat my uncle. Why, he's hurt. Did Gato and his scum threaten you? Naruto fixed her with a concerned look. You can come with us you know, we could probably provide with some extra medication too. No, it's all right. The girl hastily denied the offer. It's nothing important. Just a cold from fishing after hours, these herbs should have him back on his feet in no time. Then the girl turned to leave and, just as Sasuke was getting ready to ask her something, she turned back and winked at them. By the way, my name is Haku and I'm a boy. B-boy? Naruto whispered disbelievingly. No way I'm buying that, that person's cuter than Sakura, almost on par with Ino. Ino isn't cute, she's an early bloomer, baka. Sasuke disagreed. In fact she's just a pushy know-it-all that doesn't know all that much really. And the screeches. Gods, she has probably damaged my ears, I know Kiba has had to go to the hospital thanks to her. Yeah, but still. Such cuteness. Whatever, you noticed it, right? Sasuke focused back on the track the girl had been on, she had disappeared in mere seconds. Yeah, she lied. I know how lightly you sleep and she got so close. She didn't freak out as much when she saw your knives or when we told her we're ninja. And also, these plants, they're not for diseases. They treat blood pressure and chemical imbalances. Don't forget she refused our offer of help. In a place like this, no one would refuse extra help or medication. But, the question is, why did she stay and talk? Why didn't she use a long-range technique? Why didn't she try to attack us? Something's wrong here. Sasuke had been groomed to become a member of the police force from a young age. His mind was already working overtime to figure out these clues. It's like she wanted to tell us something about precious people. Maybe she's being pressured to work for someone? But who? Blood pressure treatment and chemical imbalances. He hummed. Being put to a near-death state would definitely mess up the body, at least for a time. She wasn't treating her uncle. She's helping Zabuza. Are you telling me we just let Zabuza's accomplice walk away? Oh man. Naruto whined, clearly not liking it. With good reason too. If they had taken her out, Zabuza would be much easier to deal with. No, she probably let us go. If she's Zabuza's accomplice, she definitely know how to take us down, both from stealth and out of it. But why? It makes no sense. Unless, could Zabuza have some sort of leverage over her, some loved one, a precious person? That would explain what she told us. But still, I think something's missing, like she wants us to win, but not in just any way, but a very specific one. I can't make heads or tails of it. Well, if you can't figure it out, I'm not even going to bother about it. I just think it's a bit simpler than that. I think we should go back though. We did manage our chakra control test, so we should be clear. Maybe he'll get us a new training or something. Right, Sasuke drawled. And you want fries with that? That guy probably only taught us because he was too tired to turn pages on his icha. I wouldn't say no to fries, but I would most definitely prefer ramen. A gurgling, almost roaring, sound from Naruto punctuated that sentence, soon followed by a similar from Sasuke. The two boys ended up walking back hungry and discussing about food. Or, well, Naruto did anyway. After a fulfilling breakfast, courtesy of Tsunami, and a rather long rant about staying outside after hours, again courtesy of Tsunami, Naruto and Sasuke were rather glad to be away from the gentle courtesies of the woman. She may be a civilian, but she was a civilian mama and that made her bloody scary. Not even Kakashi managed to escape her ranting, especially his irresponsible nature and laid-back attitude, letting two innocent little boys wander off into the wilderness. Ahem, back to what's important. So you're saying you met someone who could be an accomplice of Zabuza, had a friendly talk and it went on their merry way, is that what you're telling me? Yup. Naruto nodded. Though, keep in mind, that person also had herbs that could help with Zabuza being healed. That means she is also a medic, so he could be ready to fight again soon. The various herbal teas I made you should have helped a bit, but I'm no medic, I just mixed and matched. Yes he had. Taking random herbs he had made various teas for his teacher. Said teacher didn't drink one of them. He trusted the boy, but sometimes Naruto wasn't exactly the most predictable person. Case in point now, she said something about precious people though. Wonder if she'd like my pretties. My pretties would like her, they're very cuddly sort of plants. Would you like to be adopted by one of my pretties, Kakashi-sensei? You'd have to take good care of her though, or she'd have to scold you. They are very sensitive, my precious pretties. Now what could he say to this? The hopeful look in the blonde's eyes was heart-wrenching. How he could manage to pout like that while being 13 years old, Kakashi would never know. I'd rather not. I don't know how to best take care of your pretties. Wouldn't want them hurt now, would we? No, we wouldn't. She would throw a tantrum and that just won't do. Naruto shivered. Either way, today you should stay here. Don't think I can't tell when a student's worn his chakra raw. Sasuke may have less endurance but he isn't nearly as wiped as you. Are you telling me I'm confined to bed rest? Naruto was near apoplectic. Had he not proven that he was equal to everyone? Today only. It's just a problem with people that have naturally high chakra. Until you mature, there's a limit at how much chakra you can use in a day. It's not about how much you have, rather how much you wear out your circulation system. Think of it like friction burns, you use it more than everybody else, so you get burned. Sasuke doesn't, since he doesn't have anywhere near your amount of chakra, so he doesn't get burned, he gets a little raw though. When you mature, In a few more years, you won't have that problem. It's nothing bad, trust me, but if you channel too much chakra today, it's going to hurt like hell." Kakashi rubbed the back of his head with his hand. He was talking from experience. "Besides, someone has to watch Tsunami and Inari, you know. Starting tomorrow we'll have normal shifts of 2, alright? I'm not telling you to stay in your bed, just to let your body recover." "Aw man." Naruto whined. "Alright, I get it. But I better have something exciting tomorrow." "Well, we'll see. Tomorrow you can help around the house if you want. The garden needs some looking after and I think your clones would be a great help. But today, just stay here and rest." In mere moments Team 7 had left the building, off to the bridge, leaving only their blonde teammate behind with their secondary awards. Sitting in the garden, hands idly stroking the soul rose plant in there, Naruto looked out. Something was off about the Hishi they had met today. For just a moment, he thought he had seen an endless loneliness and sorrow in those dark brown eyes. Almost like what he had, a long time ago, before his pretties. There was also the herbs. They were not the strongest acting variety, but they were rather fast acting. Why go for greater recovery rate at the cost of less total recovery? Like poisons, one could use a fast-acting one that caused nothing worse than dizziness, or they could go for a slower-acting one that could do much worse, be it blindness or even death. So, why use the weaker effect? Unless— "Oh, shit," he thought. Using the weakest herb meant very little if you had already mostly recovered. Before he could leave the house however, there was a crash and a scream, a woman's scream. Letting go of the plant, Naruto dashed back home, worried that maybe Tsunami had slipped or something. He wasn't that lucky. 2 sword-bearing men, covered in ugly tattoos to disguise their even uglier scars, held her at sword point, sneering and leering, obviously threatening her. If there was a list of things that Naruto could not forgive, rape and murder were within the top 5, easily. And he knew that look in their eyes. They were going for it, both of the sins. When one of them grabbed Tsunami's chest roughly, Naruto broke free of his hate-induced daze and acted. Chakra gathered at his feet, and cursing himself for the pain he was about to feel, he dashed forward, almost too fast for a human eye to see. The punch that followed was very satisfying for the genin. The sound of broken bone was gross but also kind of nice. But maybe that was his hate talking, because his enemy certainly would be unable to speak for a long time. His lower jaw had been shattered. Note to self: attack strength is proportionate to the speed of the blow as well as the size of impact. Must research further, especially with Kawarimi. He didn't have much time to think though as he quickly lashed out with another blow at the other swordsman, this one at an even worse state than his comrade as he was caught with sword still sheathed. It would remain so if Naruto had a choice. The blonde quickly bobbed and weaved closer to the enemy, copying another genin that fought only with his fists, and quickly sent out a 5-hit combo that ended with a vicious uppercut. Then, before the guy had time to recover, Naruto spun on his heel and gave him a vicious mule kick at the gut. Sure, it wasn't as coordinated or effective as Sasuke's style, but it got the job done. With both men down, Naruto quickly turned to the distraught woman he had just saved. Damn, he was good, comforting her son, who had been seconds from charging to his certain death to protect her. Deciding that the boy's attention would be much better for the woman, Naruto turned to his defeated opponents. A quick search into length of rope later and the place was safe. "Tsunami-san, I have to go. These guys are accomplices of Zabuza and Gato. My team will need all the help it can get. You should go to a friend's house and barricade yourself. If we fail, be ready to run." Then he dashed up to his room. He needed to get some extra weaponry. Zabuza would not underestimate them this time, and there was that second ninja to contend with as well. The wind wheezed past Naruto's ears as he ran. He had to move fast to get to the bridge in time. Sasuke was strong and so was Kakashi, but the enemy was stronger still. Zabuza was on Kakashi's level and his aid may be beyond even that. At least his chakra hadn't hurt him yet. Seems that the damn demon's presence helped in more than reserves. It still felt weird and raw, as if scratching on a bruise, when going over a small amount, but he could take it. He has taken far more pain before, after all. On the target location however, none were as calm. Zabuza knew that Kakashi was on a level above that affected by fortunate circumstances. He had been underestimated before, it would not happen again. Sakura and Tazuna were scared out of their wits, knowing, or assuming, the strength of the other fighters in the area. The hunter in the mask was hesitating. There were people like him, lonely like him, strong like him, in this place. Could he bring himself to kill them? Could he become a true shinobi, a person that tails after death? Surrounded by icy mirrors that held his enemy no matter where he looked, Sasuke was just as troubled, only more worried. This was bad. This was really bad. He had fallen right into his enemy's trap, right into a jutsu he could not break out of. The demonic ice mirrors, as the fake hunter had called them, were immune to his weapons, his katen jutsu and his own kicks. What was he to do? A memory came to his mind. Flashback tilde. So, you noticed how overloading your chakra levels at the feet makes the tree blow up, right? Said Naruto in one of their downtimes. Yeah, it's why it's called training when you learn to not do that. Why? Thought of a new jutsu? Of course, impacting leaves or something to that extent. But no, I was thinking. Tsunade of the Sannin is considered to be extremely strong, right? But you never hear about her grappling, only her striking. So I was thinking, she took that chakra control exercise and turned it into a fighting style? That's crazy, but using leaves to chop people is even worse. What are you thinking? Sasuke was now interested. If he could mimic such a technique. Well, I was thinking of building a charge, a lump of chakra, right at the edge of your impact area and then exploding it. More charge time is more chakra is more of an impact. Yeah, but doing so would require extreme chakra control to get the proper timing. Unless, well, your Sharingan gives you a visual on where you will strike, and when. And it also gives you a visual indication on where the chakra lump is. If you were to combine knowing how long it takes to channel the lump and knowing when you will strike, you turn it from an exercise in chakra control to a matter of reflexes. Exactly. Of course, it's not that simple. You get kicked away from the tree too, so there is some backlash. You must never channel more chakra than you can handle, which makes this technique dependent on your own strength. Tsunade-sama probably has worked a way around this, but for now, I guess it'd do to get a good hit in. Probably doesn't work with ninja tools though. And I'd have to wait for my Sharingan to awaken before using it. Damn, Naruto, never thought that you of all people would figure that trick out. What can I say? I live to impress, Naruto laughed. And flashback tilde. Well, he didn't have his Sharingan yet, but he wasn't about to drop dead either, not until he had exhausted himself doing his darndest. In a desperate run, he dashed to the closest mirror to him, left hand raised above his head for a straight punch. Gods above, he hoped he was doing this right. The thump-like sound told him his punch had landed just about when he felt the pain of smashing full strength on an unyielding surface. He had missed the timing, too late. Hopefully, it wouldn't be too long. No. A loud crashing noise made Haku double-take. Haku's mirrors had never been broken before, even Zabuza-sama didn't break them. That's how he'd train her, breaking them, and her, until she made them strong enough. How? For his part, Sasuke cried out in pain as he felt the wave of pain run all the way up and down his entire arm, even his shoulder. He got now why Naruto had said to not overload the technique. He was just glad it wasn't his right hand that he'd broken, but he was free. So, with nary a thought, he dashed forward, hopefully somewhere away from all that water, somewhere he would get the advantage. He didn't get very far. Haku recovered quickly and fired several senbon at his legs, causing him to fall over. Despite her tired state, she had been taught under Zabuza. She had won harder fights in worse conditions. Then again, she was lucky that punch hadn't struck the mirror she was in. Sasuke growled at his pursuer. Damn it, he couldn't even see her. He, an Uchiha. It wasn't just about being an elite, it was about him being an Uchiha. His clan had the best eyesight possible. The Hyuga were just imitators. How could he not see? It was insulting. And besides, these weapons, what the hell, wasn't he being underestimated here? Sure, the guy, gal, whoever it was behind that mask, too thin a frame to be male, too masculine movements to be a female, was dead accurate with them, but why wasn't there a more dangerous weapon, like a kunai? Hell, shuriken were more lethal. It felt like his enemy was spearing him. And that was something that Sasuke could not accept. His pride couldn't. In one way, he was glad Naruto was Naruto. He'd gotten used to being irritated to near explosion levels, or he'd have just charged at his enemy frothing at the mouth otherwise. And speaking of a certain knuckle-headed blonde, there he was, charging at the mirror dome. Wait, what? Tajuu Kage Bunshine no Jutsu. And then it was raining Narutos. The fake hunter replied by sending out salvos upon salvos of Senbon. That most definitely destroyed the clones. Sasuke didn't even want to know how much chakra Naruto wasted right there, which in turn created enough smoke to blind everything. It was hopeless, of course, getting away from the ninja. He was trained to fight in such conditions, but it was their best bet. Quickly, Sasuke removed the senbon in his feet, biting back the pain and using it to strengthen his resolve. Kunai flew from all around Sasuke like a hail. Apparently the Dobi could really back up his claims of 1,000 clone armies, impacting the mirrors without effect. Behind the glacial wall, Haku was worried, however. Haku was quite well aware that he possessed very little chakra compared to other shinobi. It was only by virtue of exceptional control that he was able to do so much. However, the ice mirrors were heavily draining. Most enemies simply didn't live long enough while trapped within. But this time? This time, Haku's enemies were the worst possible match if the blonde's clones were to be taken into account. "Naruto, gimme some cover," Sasuke yelled and leapt back under the cover of a clone smoke bomb. He didn't have much time and only so much ninja wire. Thankfully, Naruto had taken some of the extra supplies he had back at Tezuna's home. Tying as much as he could on as many kunai, real, not cloned, he gave them to Naruto's clones. They would serve as tracers. Maybe he could get some form of hint on how to beat Haku's technique. Then, the raven-haired boy squatted down and squinted as he paid as much attention as he could, going over all the facts he had acquired. Firstly, his enemy didn't stay inside the mirrors for long. Apparently, whatever skill he had for creating ice did not extend to weathering such cold for too long. Secondly, every time his enemy attacked, he removed himself completely from the mirrors. That meant that his movement was rather limited while inside the safety area. The two combined told Sasuke that the Hunter Nin didn't use a straightforward jutsu, but rather one that affected dimensions as well. By affecting space he could affect time, so that's why he became so fast. Also, the masked ninja could only move from one mirror to another. Presumably, if he were to not enter a mirror, his speed boost would break, if he even was capable of doing so. Last but not least, the ninjutsu also increased reaction time. They could not hope to land a blow as it would be detected and diverted, unless they could predict what would happen. All in all, despite the weaknesses of that jutsu, it was still one major pain in the ass, and they were quite probably screwed if he didn't get the guy's pattern figured out soon. Which was exactly what the tracers had been for. If he could hold the taut strings of the kunai in his hands, he could maybe find some weak point, some way to predict it. It only took him a few seconds to realize that was futile. The Hunter Nin could choose to move to any mirror he had visual to. He was not restricted, he had no discernible pattern. But, as he strained, both mind and body, he also strained his chakra. He had heard from Kiba that his Kekkei Genkai, if it was one truly, depended on channeling chakra to specific points and controlling it. Sasuke's Kekkei Genkai, the revered Sharingan, resided in the eyes, coincidentally in the same body part he needed to work as best as he could. So, between the flurry of senbons, the smoke of dispelled clones, the reflections of ninja wires and the blue haze of chakra, Sasuke began to see something. It was indistinct and so damn fast, no more than a large shadow leaping around. But the shadow's movements were soon followed by tugs in the wires he held in his hands. Left, right, no left again, up and left, to the side, below up. The shadow went and Sasuke followed it as fast as he could, his eyes jumping from mirror to mirror. Down, right, left, down right, up, I can see it. He quickly retrieved his best kunai, a longer than normal pair, a birthday gift from him. Then he was off, remembering to push all the chakra he could into his legs, moving faster than he ever had. Sasuke never noticed he left a small crater at his starting point. Naruto might have been surprised by Sasuke's sudden charge, but he didn't let it stop him. He showered the area with more shuriken than ever, hoping to pin the rogue ninja in a mirror. Haku might not have been pinned, he was too fast for that, but he sure as hell was surprised when he suddenly found himself nose to mask with Sasuke. his hands straining to hold the knives back with just his senbone. What? How? He could not resist asking. Not even Zabuza-sama could do this. Sasuke only raised his head to pin the eyes behind the faceless mask, smirking. "I can see you," he mocked in the semi-childish tone he knew would infuriate his enemy. Haku cursed, "Just his luck." Leaping back, he melted into a mirror. An Uchiha, a survivor of that tragic clan. "I see, no wonder I couldn't defeat you. Is your friend from another so famous a clan? When it all fails." Parley. A scoff was his return. "Naruto? The Dobi wouldn't have such luck. No, he's just your average ninja, no clan backing him. But, you see, Naruto has earned my respect. If you know of Uchiha, you do realize how rare it is to give our respect to a clanless, right?" He allowed his smirk to widen. "Oh yeah, feel the burn, bitch. Feel the fear." Sasuke was quite pleased to note the minute widening of the eyes. The ninja was now realizing that he was horribly outmatched. That would lead to mistakes which he could then use to bring this fight to a victorious end. Unfortunately, Sasuke forgot that when people are pushed to the wall, they retaliate, often in an unpredictable way. He was quite surprised to find a clone try to smother him from behind while the masked ninja fled right past him. Belatedly, he also realized that to move so fast meant that there was a mirror on his rear too. Sasuke's knives flaced quickly and disposed of the clone, turning around to block the incoming attack. Only, there was no attack heading towards Sasuke. There was only an enemy heading towards Naruto. And the blonde couldn't even see him. Mirrors appeared in front of Haku, made to last only for a second as he practically flew towards the blonde. He had to be removed if he wanted to have a chance to beat the other one. Interference, even for a second, would be lethal against an Uchiha. Then a mirror materialized to Naruto's side and he threw his senbone as he pirouetted over the boy. Naruto turned to the side, only having barely caught the forming mirror's reflection, to realize had just been had. No clones to defend him and he was going down. Time seemed to still for him, almost mocking him by finally letting him see the sleek thrown weapons. Then his field turned black and he realized it was hair. Familiar hair. A body seemed to shudder once, twice, as the senbone impacted and then fall back on him. Sasuke? Hey Dobi. Sasuke's voice was weak, almost sleepy. "Fancy that, me saving your skin. How pathetic is that?" He seemed to exhale softly and then just looked at the sky. "Don't die, live for me too. Naru, too." Then he wasn't moving anymore. He wasn't moving anymore. "Sasuke?" Naruto shook his friend once, twice and repeated the call. "See, come on man, this is nothing, just a pair of needles. You've had worse before, right? You can't die from that, you can't. Sasuke. You can't die. You can't leave me alone." Was he your friend? Was he a dear friend? Was this the first time you watched someone die? Haku taunted. At least the greatest obstacle had been removed. Now, if he could infuriate the blonde into losing control of his technique. It's a cruel world, people die all the time. He died. Because he wasn't strong enough. Because of his weakness. "Shut up." It was only whispered, but it resounded in Haku's ears as if someone had shouted it. "Shut the fuck up." A weird chakra was now escaping the blonde. If Haku had to put it to words, if he had blue before, now he had blood red. The alliteration did not escape the now gulping ninja. "He was my friend. He understood me. You took him from me. I'm going to fucking kill you." It felt like an explosion, only without the concussive force. But with all the heat, the scorching heat that seemed to melt the ice and evaporate the water. Haku flinched once more as he realized that the heat was merely a side effect of the blonde's sheer, unearthly, rage. Then, with no warning, Haku felt his eyes widen in terror and surprise like as Sasuke was not supported by hands anymore. And there was a glowing fist heading towards his head, that too. Poor Haku found himself akin to an out-of-body experience as he was sent flying back by a punch that broke his mirror, his hands and quite possibly his sternum. He felt almost detached from his body as the world flipped around him several times over. Then the pain hit and it was only thanks to Zabuza's and the Hunter Nincore training that allowed him to not scream in pain. The subsequent blows, all delivered as if the blonde was slashing, however, sent Haku far beyond his admirable pain tolerance level. It was almost a relief when Naruto had pounced onto his broken body, much like a predator would, and pinned him down. And yet, there was not nearly as much animalistic fury behind those red, slit eyes, as there was an endless pain, an abysmal loneliness, a look that Haku knew all too well. "Go ahead. Kill me. You have won. I am of no more use to my master." It was not only that he had failed Zabuza. It was the realization of what he had done to someone who had been so similar to himself. He had just taken someone else's precious person. Haku didn't want to live if he were to subject someone else to the same pain he had been drowning in. It would make him no better than his father. Haku closed his eyes as he saw the blonde's raised fist, glowing with so much power he was glad he was no censor. It would have probably blinded him. Then it came down. Why? Haku was quite surprised to find himself alive. Why kill him? What gave you the right? Then there was the welcome feeling of breathing as the boy's knee was taken off his lungs. Still hurt like hell though. "You aren't killing me?" "He is dead." The vile, crimson chakra was retreating now. There is just no point. "You can't hurt us anymore." It was true, the blows had jarred Haku, he could barely raise his arms to defend himself or even draw breath, his chakra was also dangerously low. Even his hunter nin mask had been destroyed sometime into the short altercation. It didn't suppress Haku nearly as much as it should, considering they had been made to be tougher than steel. So, the defeated ninja sat down and awaited his judgment. Regardless of who of the two warring Jounin won, his life as a tool, a bad life but the only one he had, would be over. The mists cleared. Off to the side, Sakura was shaking, kunai in hand and terror in her eyes, in front of a just as terrified Tazna. Beyond them, another pair facing each other, one kneeling and the other slouching forward. The shadowy shape of the legendary cleaver sword lay in their middle. Kakashi sighed as he pulled his headband back up. It was finally over. He'd probably get a few nightmares, but it would be worth it to protect his brats. Zabuza had been defeated from the moment he threatened to dismember his three genin apart after beating him. It had just taken the missing nin a little bit to realize his folly. "It's over, Zabuza. No hands, no weapon and barely a bit of chakra. You've lost," he stated. "I'd let you go, really, but I can't. Your actions, bringing ruin to a whole country just for your desire for money, threatening my client, and worse, threatening my genin, I have to stop you." The bloodied shinobi barked out a laugh. "Then do it, copy nin. Don't bore me with your morality speeches. If that trash, Haku, had at least been a little bit worth my time, I'd have killed you, but it seems I chose the wrong tool to follow me out of my Zugakuer." He spat, glaring at the heartbroken Haku. "You pathetic brat, you can't even do one thing right." "I bet you didn't even kill that blue-haired bastard over there, did you?" he spat out. "You're just a weak, worthless little shit." He would have said more had Naruto not dashed and punched him in the face, sending the missing ninja rolling on the floor. "How dare you!" he screamed at him, crimson chakra once again awakening. "Haku is stronger than you ever thought. Haku gave everything he has to you, and that's how you repay his loyalty, his kindness. If you are what is a true shinobi, then I'd rather be a civilian, rather than a coward like you, who hides from his own emotions." He took a deep breath. "I'd rather be a weakling rather than a pathetic fool who doesn't realize when he hurts his precious people." "Shut up, rat." There was something different about Zabuza this time, something in the way he stood. He seemed startled for a second as if he heard something, then sighed. "Well, seems like you wanted to double-cross me from the beginning, eh, Gutto?" The mist finally cleared to reveal a midget in front of several hundred mercenaries. The suit easily identified him as their boss. "Well, at least you have enough brains to realize that, don't you, Zabuza-chan?" he mocked, striking the ground with his cane. "It's more cost-efficient to hire a ninja, have him kill my enemies and then hire 1,000 mercenaries to kill him. It's even better in your case, I'll get your bounty too," he laughed. "No hard feelings, eh Zabuza? It's just business." But the demon of the mist wasn't so easily defeated. No, he was defeated, just not physically. That boy's words have cut into him deeper than any blade. Since when had he been with Haku? When had he not been with Haku? So long they had been together, fighting, surviving, eking a miserable existence made bearable only by their mutual companionship. His rage simmered. "So, I was thinking, that brat of yours, he'll make a good example, won't he? Breaking my arm, the bastard, I'll break him." Now his rage boiled over. Hey, Zabuza chuckled, it was so funny. So exhilarating. He knew he shouldn't be feeling it, but his rage, his fury, it made his adrenaline come short, it made endorphins explode within him, mixing an addictive, heady drug that brought a blood-red haze to his eyes. Tossing his head back, he laughed. Ha 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 ha. Then came his key, his killing intent, the absolute, complete desire to maim, kill, destroy, dismember, drink their blood, bath into their entrails. It settled on their shoulders like a boulder, making them almost kneel in abject terror. Kakashi's eye widened. Zabuza was like him. He, too, had another self, locked away, the true Kishin, the true demon. And now, that pudgy little midget had just awakened it. The only thing he could think was fuck. Then, Zabuza was off, charging head first, no chakra or weapons or even his hands to help him. Just that insane, consuming bloodlust that froze almost 1,000 men. It did not stop a Jinchuriki, nor that man's defeated accomplice. It took Haku's remaining chakra, but she threw her master a weapon, a nice, solid, ice katana, just so he could grab it with his teeth. Then, Haku knew no more, having lost consciousness. Unconsciousness was the farthest thing to Naruto's mind. The Kyuubi's power surged within him. He could feel its hate, he could feel its wrath, and he felt the same. Unable to contain himself, he knew he would explode unless he were to burn the chakra off. Taijutsu Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. Mass Shadow Clone Technique. The Kyuubi-powered technique burst outwards like a wave of smoke, obscuring everything, expanding and expanding until it covered half the bridge. Then a gust of wind cleared the smoke and Kakashi had to thank his mask for not letting his jaw hit the floor. There were clones everywhere. On the floor, on the rails, on the side of supporting beams, on the side of the bridge. He was sure that some were hanging from under it too. When they took their kunai out, Kakashi knew it would be a massacre. But he also knew it would traumatize his student. So, with a weary sigh, he let out him. It felt so familiar, as if they hadn't been separated for a day. His nostrils flared and the metallic scent of blood made him grin. He breathed it deeply and the world seemed to spin into focus. Finally he could see. He could feel. The world itself had finally come alive. Hatake Kakashi, former Anbu captain, Jounin and laid-back pervert took the backseat as he allowed his alter ego, Anbu captain, assassin and general bloodthirsty badass take control. Then he vanished in a blur, appearing in front of Zabuza, his hands already snapping two necks. When someone tried to stab him, he seemed to flow without bones or even purpose, as if he had stumbled. It would have been funny if not for the two kunai that slit 4 throats each. Then came the rain of steel and Kakashi began dancing. Kicking and punching and parrying the thrown weapons, he redirected them to the many mercenaries almost as easily as a one could breathe. The Hatake Kakashi inside him was just happy that his student had avoided lethal spots completely. He would have almost mistook it for bad aim if it were not for the sheer amount of thrown weapons. It seemed Naruto wouldn't become a killer this day. Zabuza on the other hand? Oh, the Nuke Nin rejoiced in the bloodbath. His maniacal laughter would haunt the dreams of many, his pure white blade now stained with so much blood that it must have seeped deep inside the crystal. Then the man was in front of Gato. His form, bared-necked from the waist and up, towered over the other one. There were few contrasts as sharp as this one. In one hand, a murderer, a born killer, a demon, tall and strong and proud. In the other hand, a murderer, a weak, pathetic life form, coward amongst cowards, whose only power wasn't even his own. Zabuza's foot caught Gato on the chin and lifted him in the air. Then, a sword pierced him through the kidneys and another one through the lungs. One by one, Zabuza struck all the most painful spots of the body before letting the screaming businessman fall to the ground, bleeding and pleading. Finally, a kick and he had shoved him off the bridge they had both worked to destroy. Most of the onlooking thugs, those not screaming in pain or trying to evade Kakashi as best as their limited skill allowed, stared at the blood-spattered demon. Zabuza only smirked at them, and that was just as scary as if he was attacking them. "Well? Come get me!" he screamed at them. Of course, No one would take his invitation. They were definitely not that suicidal or stupid. So, their shoes filled with liquid fear, screaming like the women they so liked to torture, they ran off the bridge, leaping onto the waiting boat transport, or into the water when they couldn't fit. But even those that got on the boat wouldn't go too far. The people of Wave had finally found their courage and had assembled on their own boat craft and already surrounding the miscreants. It would seem Wave's prisons would be full for a long time. It was about that time that, released from the paralyzing fear of Zabuza's aura, Sakura realized she hadn't seen Sasuke anywhere. Of course, she could care less about Naruto, too. Despite his rapid growth lately, she still considered inferior to her as he was a parentless nobody, but her heart was fanatically, even obsessively, devoted to the soul Uchiha heir of Konoha. "Oi, Naruto baka, where is Sasuke-kun?" She screamed at him. After all, Sasuke-kun would be far more useful in the fight against Zabuza. Why would he have stayed back to guard the masked ninja prisoner? It was only the despair she saw in Naruto's eyes that hinted to her that something might be wrong. It was only the sight of the prone body laying further away towards the shore, surrounded by many of the people of Wei, most of them with boat heads, that told her what was going on. Ignoring all protocol, and most sanity, Sakura ran off to her down crush and fell to the ground sobbing. She couldn't believe it. He was dead, 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 and there was nothing she could do about it. So, sobbing, she fell onto his chest. Or would have anyway, as the missing nin, who had managed to come around a few moments ago, grabbed her hands and pushed her off the boy. "You!" Sakura screamed at her enemy. "You killed him. You!" She was never the good with insults or banner. Ino always beat her at that, but she made up with more than enough zealotry. Only, zealotry didn't really help her free her hands from the vice-like grip the prisoner had. "Stop it. You'll aggravate the wounds." There was an infuriating smile on her face, closed eyes and all. "I don't think Uchiha-kun would appreciate my senbon going any deeper than they already are." "What are you talking about, you bastard? You killed him," she shouted, or more like screeched. Then she stopped struggling as an umph sound came from below her hands and a familiar voice complained. "God, why doesn't the screeching stop? Last time I go drinking with that doby. See? I only knocked him unconscious." "Sasuke-kun." Now she was crying again, but happy tears as she would say, "Oof. Sakura. Get off me, damn it." "T-Team?" Naruto's voice reached the Uchiha. "You're alive?" "HN. Rumors of my demise were grossly exaggerated." "Ouch, Sakura. Watch your hands, damn it." He scowled at the pink hit that hurt him more than helped him. "Haku, could you please get these needles off me?" But Haku didn't have time to do that as a large shadow fell over her, cast by the equally large shadow of Zabuza being carried fireman style by Kakashi. The missing ninja simply sloughed to the ground next to his former apprentice. "Oi, Haku, before tending to the enemy, make sure your own team's covered." Haku's own eyes were glacial as they bore into Zabuza's own, belying the rage the former tool felt. "That's what I'm doing, Zabuza-sama." And Haku's hands pulled out a needle from Sasuke's body, ignoring his indignant cries of pain and surprise. "Yeah. About that. I'm sorry, Haku." He seemed mightily uncomfortable with his admission. Frankly, he seemed even more uncomfortable when he looked at Haku's face, who seemed to have changed to better project the teary, large, doe-like eyes his apprentice had. "Zabuza-sama." And then, he experienced his maybe third hug in his life. A dozen things passed through his mind to say at that moment, but in the end he settled for an indignant ouch. "Easier on the ribs, Haku. I always knew you were more of a demon than me." Of course that only produced much laughter from the three males of Team 7, leaving Sakura outside of their private world of insanity. The battle was over and they had survived. All was good. Yet another chapter by yours truly, though it was my hardest one yet. Hope you enjoyed it and want to adopt it. I'm getting irritating with the whole adoption thing, I know, but having so many fics can be hard on me. Especially since I haven't completed a single one of them, one-shots and such not taken into account. Also, here's a question, of sorts. I'm trying to find a taijutsu style for Naruto. I came up with a wuxia/wushu combination focused on kicks and acrobatics to allow for quick movement and free the hands for had seals. He's a ninjutsu specialist after all. Sasuke could go for Goken, Uchiha Interceptor, or whatever his family's style is called, Naruto's style, and use twin knives to get up close and personal, melee combat using a large amount of ninjutsu and genjutsu to supplement. His Sharingan-based reflexes make him an excellent close-quarters combatant. Sakura will still be, well, Sakura, totally pointless. So, yay or nay? Go for it? Ideas on it? Finally, Haku, male or female? Kind of thinking FM. Hakuk Sasuke fling. Maybe meeting up again later on. Then there's Naruto's pairings. Anyone but Sakura could play a part. She's already insulted his pretties. Suggestions? Though, for the foreseeable future none of them will be more serious than a romantic flick, not like people usually marry their teen boyfriends/girlfriends. Omake Corner. Visiting Naruto's greenhouses. Scene 1. Naruto's greenhouse collection stands at the edge of Konoha, but not outside the wall. It is a large place, belonging to Naruto mostly because nobody else lays claim on it. Today, we visit the warehouse. Named so because that's exactly what it is. Pre-QB, it was used as a storage warehouse, but during the Beast, and the following fallout of various economic businesses, it was abandoned. Truth be told, its owner gave it away with a smile. Even if it was Naruto, when it was bought it was almost at the point of falling apart. Nothing of the sort now, however. Now, the warehouse stands rebuilt and robust, perfect for the cultivation of fungi and plants that require less sunlight. So, why exactly are we here instead of, I don't know, the gates, waiting for our client? Asked Sasuke, annoyed. But I have to take care of my pretties, replied Naruto, happily. Since I'll be gone for so long, I have to leave them some food, you know? What if something happens? I couldn't leave them to starve. And why can't your clones do it? Because my clones break apart after a single blow. Thought you knew that. Meanwhile Naruto wasn't standing still. He opened a large refrigerator and walked into it. Several grunts of exertion punctuated his speech. When he came out, he had a whole skinned deer on his shoulders. And Naruto? What the hell are you doing with that deer? Asked Kakashi with trepidation. The blonde just looked back at him in the weird way possible. Getting some food for my pretties. It's only a bit though, they seem to have been getting weight lately. Need to get them on a diet. And with a happy whistling tune he was off to feed his pretties. Growling, wet splattering sounds and crunching of something hard. Kakashi, Sasuke and Sakura would never set foot in that warehouse for the rest of their lives. Bacon. Haku watched transfixed as the red, malicious chakra raged around Naruto like a maelstrom. It lashed out violently, tendrils of Yuki cutting gashes through the frozen mirrors. Then something wrong happened. What leaf the tendrils would touch became red and rectangle, the smell of smoked meat heavy in the air. Then came Naruto's voice. For the Bakun. The following beatdown is removed from the fic for the benefit of underage readers, weak stomachs and people who still have a shred of humanity in them. So, how did all that bacon show up in the bridge? Asked Kakashi. Apparently the lump of meat had been appreciated by the hungry folk of Wave. So much so that most of them didn't care about hygiene and just ate the delicious morsels off the ground. Ew. Oh, QB made them out of my leaves when I used its power. Naruto replied nonchalantly. At least it was just Kakashi and Naruto in the room where the Jounin would have to practice his memory seals on his own students. He hadn't done so in 14 years, mostly because last time he did, things didn't go well. QB? And how exactly did he manage that? It's simple really. Thanks to the law of flora-fauna equality, in tandem with the energy-to-heat theory and compounded by the Atani heat theorem, the leaves, as organic matter, could be considered meat. Therefore when QB's energy scorched them, they became cooked meat and the quality of such great amounts of raw energy turned them to high-quality bacon. Of course one could counter that raw energy in fact is non-existent as it depends on its medium to be expressed, but QB's power surpasses the circular numerical infinity theorem, turning it in fact into heat. Naruto explained somehow summoning several visual aids in the form of papers with rather analytical equations and presentations. He even had glasses on his face and wore a white doctor's trench coat. Really? In an instant, everything had vanished and Naruto went back to staring at the potted plant on the window. Well no. QB just made it happen. He likes his bacon you know. But how? He's QB. He makes earthquakes, infernos, volcanoes, tornadoes, tsunamis and generally all kinds of disasters. Does the fact he makes bacon seem all that far-fetched? Well, no, but, besides, it gave me an idea. Naruto leap up, eyes glowing with barely repressed intellect and madness. Kakashi wasn't sure the madness was repressed all that much. A new line of jutsu. No, he can't be thinking. Bacon jutsu. Bekinton, Bekonyos no jutsu. Bacon style, bacon summoning. Kakashi would later be found in a catatonic state. Psychologists couldn't get him to respond at all. Except one day that a warden came to work with a strip of smoked meat. Bakoon. Kakashi's scream of terror would in fact divert the invading force of Auto and Suna ninja. Whatever could produce such a horrified scream was definitely out of their league. Meanwhile, in Naruto's stomach, an old demon looking like a fox grinned happily. He had bacon and all was good. Yum, bacon.